The descent hits a breaking point. 1 second they're pushing forward, and the next they're trapped on the labyrinth's 98th floor. Panting like crazy in the pounding rain, Mei Li, red hair, blazing fights through the chaos, trying to claw back her breath. She freezes in horror as Wim Strauss towers above the waterlogged battlefield, standing on top of a hulking armored beast that looms like a nightmare over the ground. A sinister laugh slices through the storm as a hidden figure leans in, glaring with a wide, mocking grin. Then the story rips back a few months to when the party was tearing through stone-carved halls deep inside the labyrinth. Wim trembles with his dagger out, and he spits the brutal truth. If you chase greed instead of backing away from a floor boss, death is coming for you, no question. The once proud dragon's wings crumple in ruin, bloody and broken, staggering across the cold stone floor after a devastating clash. Shock slams into Wim as he gapes at the carnage, staring at the nightmare that's unfolding at his feet. Clinging to one desperate sliver of hope, he begs the heavens that his comrades are still alive somehow, despite those brutal, life-threatening injuries. A thunderous crash erupts as the massive creature roars into the room right behind the adventurer, who yelps in pure shock. A gigantic reptile monster, jagged, scaled, and packed with rows of razor-sharp teeth, looms over the lone survivor like a living nightmare. The beast let out a deep, guttural growl, and its predatory eye snapped onto its next target. Staring down that nightmare, Wim finally snaps. He understands just how terrifyingly powerful a floor boss really is. With one explosive hit, the monster hurls the whole party aside like ragdolls. Panicked and drenched in sweat, Wim realizes one single hit has dropped everyone, and he scrambles desperately for any way out. He wrestles with the brutal odds, buying time for a rescue or hauling 3 unconscious allies to safety, and realizes both choices are basically suicide. Wim braces for the inevitable, realizes there's only one last desperate move, and steels himself to square up with the monster head on. Chanting the words to his secret technique, he readies his one-of-a-kind switch, Puppenspieler, ready to unleash the puppeteer ability. For one razor-thin, shame-soaked second, the ugly idea of ditching the others and running for his life alone slithered into his head. Then it hits him fast. Dragon's wings didn't just take him in, they wrapped him in precious bonds forged day after day. In the dark shadows, a wicked presence keeps cackling, sneering like it's enjoying every second of the tragedy that's unfolding. With the beast blasting a thunderous roar, Wim surges with pride. He's standing his ground, fighting back in the moment that'll define his whole life. That memory slips away into the quiet hush of the Dragon's Wings party house, the same place where the crew once huddled together, safe and still. Back in the present, a nervous kid stands before his teammates inside their house, staring into the room as if the air itself feels strange and heavy. Confusion crashed in as the Wimstammers couldn't make sense of the brutal, sudden cold snap in his friend's attitude. His heart drops through the floor when a sudden, sharp move hits him out of nowhere. With sheer disbelief, he watches his own leader raise a massive blade right in front of his throat, eyes locked on him with a chilling, deadly glare. Kronos, the leader of Dragon's Wings, glares down in disgust and orders Wim to get lost like the filthy scum he claims him to be. Meech Meles and Priest Nikur give him zero support, then sneer that it's obvious he doesn't belong in their elite party anymore. They sneer at his hero act, swiping aside the fact that he was the one who nailed the boss with the final blow, calling it nothing but luck. Kronos sneers at Wim, laughs off his effort, and insists that only his own magic blade and Melee's magic were what truly trapped the boss. Frozen by that icy betrayal, Wimstammers couldn't believe their bond had turned so dark because in his heart, he genuinely thought the win was something they shared together as one team. A brutal old memory slams back, Wim crumples on his knees, drained from the defeated beast, and still, naively, he begs for his comrades to give him even a single word of praise. The party turns on him like a storm, spitting venomous accusations that his support buffs weren't enough and that it was his fault they got wiped out by the creature. Harsh accusations slammed into the young man as his former friends, ice cold, declared that every single failure inside the labyrinth was his fault and his alone. A gut-punch realization hits Wim when he finally realizes his teammates have been hating him since day one of their journey. Wim's face twists in silent agony as their total rejection slams down on his spirit like a crushing weight. Desperate to save his own life, Wim blurts out an apology for every failure he thinks he has fully lost and totally confused. He begs them to let him stay, because he knows exactly what he is, a nobody granter, so no other guild would ever waste a slot hiring him for an expedition. Sweat poured off his brow as he practically pleaded to stay in the one place that ever made him feel like he truly belonged. Kronos grins with icy indifference, then throws out a brutal game to crush Wim's fate for good. The leader rips his sword from its sheath and dares him with a totally impossible-sounding condition. Wim has to beat him in a fight if he wants any chance of staying in the party. Wim knows it all too well. Someone like him, a total non-combatant, has absolutely no shot against a seasoned warrior like Kronos. A hysterical laugh bursts out as the truth hits him. He's gonna need another miracle just to make it out of this alive. Fuming at the answer, Kronos demands to know what on earth Wim finds funny in a situation this grim. Before Wim can even blink, Kronos rockets forward and rips him off the ground, clawing his throat with violent force. The leader hurls vicious insults at his former comrade, calling him a worthless scumbag who's only good for beginner-level support buffs. Kronos roars that someone as low as Wim is never allowed to challenge the party leader's absolute authority. Wim gasped for breath as the beating kept coming, but his desperate pleas crash into deaf silence, with Kronos hits the grantor with a thunderous slam, flings him aside like he's nothing, and snarls that he's nothing but a weakling. Kronos clenches his fist, fury burning hot, because the thought that someone this pathetic could even get a boss kill is something he simply can't swallow. Wim crumples to the floor, hacking like his lungs are on fire, seething because he risked everything for people who can't stand him. His hand shakes on the floorboards as the memory hits how he truly vowed to repay the dragon's wings for taking him in when he was nothing but some odd job worker. Betrayal finally cracks him open. Tears burst out as the brutal truth of being left behind shatters his heart. A heavy shadow sweeps across the room, and then boom, mysterious high-heeled boots materialize in the doorway like trouble has arrived. Wim snaps his gaze upward from the floor, but blood and tears cloud his vision as he strains to figure out who just stepped in. With his body screaming in pain, he gasps out a weak question: who is the person looming over his shattered form? Kronos steps in and unveils the woman as Sophia, then announces she's already picked to join the party in Wimstead. Sophia drops into a silent bow, while Kronos blares that his superior skills will easily fill the left behind by Wim's departure. Towering over his old friend, Kronos spits out a last, bone-chilling order. Wim needs to get out and never make him say it twice again. Kronos lands the final crushing blow, snaps that Dragon's wings are done with Wim, and shoves him out immediately. A brutal close-up shows Wim's face twisted with pure terror and shock, sweat pouring down as the betrayal hits him like a punch. The scene snaps to an ancient, sprawling city packed so tightly it feels alive, with a towering clock tower stabbing up toward the clouds. Up in the sky, above the roar of the city streets, birds swoop and spin around the great clock tower's ornate spire, its towering presence making the adventurer's hub impossible to miss. This maze-like city feels like it was carved straight out of the dreams and hot hopes of young adventurers chasing fortune deep within its depths. Merchants rake in fortune selling rare treasures like high fins hauled straight from the 35th floor, proving that this whole city was built on what the labyrinth gives up. Market stalls overflow with magic stones ripped straight from the 60th floor, along with other first-class treasures sold like pure gold to anyone desperate enough to pay. Step past the city gates and you'll find endless wild lands packed with one-of-a-kind, monster materials, plus rare sights you'd never spot anywhere on the surface. In this world, your legend is built on what you dare to accomplish first, and the friendships you forge while risking death are said to hit harder than any family bond. Anyone who dares to risk their life and push into the labyrinth's deadly depths earns the title of adventurer, and the world won't forget their courage. Cast out and left with nothing, Wim trudges through the streets, drowning in despair, muttering over and over that he just wants to die. He fears that even with the adventurer's guilt-landing jobs, no party will ever hire a grantor, because that role is hated by almost everyone. Staring at that twig inn, he weighs whether to hunt solo for small fry or hook up with some pathetic F-rank crew, then worries he's seriously overrating himself. Loud, rowdy laughter and clinking glasses spilling out of the inn only make Wim's misery sting even more. Wim stares at the few pathetic coins left in his palm, and it hits him after getting exiled, he's got almost nothing left. Realizing that crushing grief demands something to dull the sting, he steels himself and steps toward the rowdy, lively place. A bell chimed the moment he shoved the door open, and a bright, cheerful voice swept in like sunshine, welcoming him with open arms. A cheerful buster waitress named Gredis Ann clocks him instantly and bursts out his name with a bright, warm smile that practically welcomes him in. Wim flashes a respectful smile at Gredis Ann, and when she says she's already heard the latest news about his party, he greets her like nothing's more important than that. She can't hold back. She congratulates him with pure excitement because she finally heard the rumor. Dragon's Wings actually beat the floor boss. The other patrons jump in, jeering him as world number one and taunting, "So are you really going to treat the whole house to celebrate?" Gredisand's already calling it after the guild officially reviews the boss kill site. His party is getting promoted to the air rank, and it's going to happen soon. Without a trace of celebration in him, Wim quietly waves off the toast and just orders a beer and his usual sausage plate. He drops into the bar seat alone, digs into his meal, and the sharp snick of his knife-slicing sausage gets swallowed by the crowd's loud chatter. He takes one bite and grimaces, food turns bitter and wrong, and he's convinced it's his heavy heart killing his appetite. Suddenly, that familiar, creepy foo-hee-hi-hi laugh spills out of his throat, and he jerks back hard, slapping a hand over his mouth in shock. A sharp sting of hurt hits him as he recalls how Kronos always snapped at him to stop laughing like that, like it was downright disgusting. A sudden jolt hits him. He realizes he's not part of Dragon's Wings anymore, and the moment it clicks, the chains of their rules finally snap. He scans the crowd of adventurers huddled in loud little groups, and the moment his family throws him away, loneliness hits him like a punch to the chest. Win stared at the memories of those old celebrations and admitted, once and for all, that no matter how hard he tried, he was never really good at jumping into their conversations. Wim stares at his empty plate, heart tugging with bittersweet memories of every wild moment he shared with the party, and finally admits to himself, yeah, it really was fun. Reality crashes in when he realizes he's got nowhere left to go, no home, no place that feels like his anymore. Greta-san watches him from across the bar, her face soft with quiet sympathy for the shattered adventurer. That sudden doorbell blasts him out of his depression, and a familiar voice roars his name like it's calling him back to life. In total disbelief, he finds the disheveled Heidi Marie slumped in the inn's doorway, gasping for breath, and he snaps at her, demanding to know why she followed him all the way here. A wave of heartbreak floods the red-haired mage's face as she locks eyes with Wim, her gaze screaming with regret she can't bring herself to say. Now the spotlight slams onto the Adventure Guild headquarters' grand, ornate domes towering over the whole city. Inside the master's office, an official strides in with a stiff, formal report laying out the results of the exam on the giant crocodile carcass that got wiped out on the 98th floor. The guildmaster leans in, hears the party's "we all worked together" story, and then demands the investigator's honest verdict on how that battle really went. He starts wondering if the dragon's official wing report even matches what they found on the ground at the scene. Up close, the beast corpse tells a brutal truth. The biggest damage, even the fatal strike, came from nothing fancy, a plain machete. The examiner calls it out, sure, magic and enchanted blades can leave scratches, but they don't pack enough punch to truly hurt that high-level monster. The investigation hits a jaw-dropping turning point when they confirm Wim Strauss was the only one in the party swinging a machete. The officials finally hit that nearly impossible conclusion. This clueless grantor murdered the floor boss all by himself, pure raw strength, no help. A cloaked stranger studies a razor-detailed city map, eyes locked on one pinpoint location hidden deep inside the tangled web of streets. Confused out of her mind, she stares at Wim's tracker crest and can't believe it. Why did it suddenly ditch the Dragon's Wings headquarters and pop up at some cheap inn? She digs through her gear, grumbling under her breath, until she claws out the wiretap device ready to snag even more intel. A sharp ping snaps through she's found it, locking onto the exact signal and pinpointing the exact spot it's coming from. Through the device, she catches Kronos' vicious voice snarling at Wim, "Get lost, scum!" and the shock confirms every nightmare she's been afraid of. Rage sears through her as she clenches her fist, swearing she'll get payback on Kronos for daring to talk to her beloved Wim like that. Ringing with desperation, she sprints straight for the crumbling inn, screaming his name as she closes in on the towering wooden walls. Inside the tavern, the door explodes open, and a panting girl stumbles in, instantly snapping every eye on her. Wim whips around in shock, eyes huge, as Hyde Mary bursts in the doorway, panting and red-faced from a sprint. Greta-san flashes the newcomer a knowing grin, but Wim is still so stunned by Hyde Mary's sudden arrival that his brain just won't kick in. The waitress smirks and taunts Mary, then calls her Stalker S. John, savoring every flustered, breathless reaction she can't help but show. Hyde Mary shoots back immediately, blaring that her name has 0 S's, then fires off a savage jab at Greta, calling her a cowgirl. The two women trade savage insults while the crowd chants "Hyde Mary" and yells "Drop dead" over and over, and Greta just smirks, flaunting her chest with a loud boing sound effect. She cuts through the banter and snaps her focus back to Wim, insisting she's not there to pick a fight with the waitress. She slides up to his table, clearly panicked, and asks if he's okay, but Wim just stammers, totally lost in confusion. Wim figures the word about his firing has already flown around, and he shoots her a nervous look asking if she's here because Dragon's Wings. Hyde Mary flat out denies any rumors, leaving Wim scratching his head. How did she clock that something was off if gossip wasn't the source? She nonchalantly drops the bombshell that she knows everything about him, and that single line makes her sudden arrival feel even more impossible. Hyde Mary swears it's nothing, just because they're both from the same village, yet Wim looks like he's about to crumble, terrified by what her knowledge might mean. A flashback bubble flashes her younger self, realizing her explanation actually clicks, and it quietly eases his suspicion just a little. Still rattled by it all, Wim scratches his head, wondering what could have happened to make her bolt over like that. Hyde, Mary, and Gretis Ann corner him, grilling him for answers as they realize something terrifying must have happened because the look on his face is pure heartbreak. Wim fumbles for the right words, scratching the back of his neck in pure awkward panic as he readies himself to drop the bombshell. He finally blurts out the truth to everyone in the room, straight up admitting he got fired from Dragon's Wings. The tavern explodes into stunned silence, everyone drops their forks and just freezes, because his confession hits the room like a crushing weight. One adventurer slams his palm on the table, snarling, "Why the hell was Wim fired when our party was one step away from an A-rank promotion?" The patrons huddle together, whispering, "Yeah, we know the other three, but when everyone only remembers him for running errands and doing chores." Wim tells them he barely had a second to pack yet. He still left every single bit of necessary paperwork behind for them. He shrugs off his own importance, claiming anyone could do his job and even saying Sophia, his replacement, looks more than capable. Sophia's name alone grabs Hyde Mary's attention as Win starts bragging about the gorgeous elf who just slid into his party. Greta clicks her tongue in disgust, blasting Kronos as a damn womanizer for swapping out a party member the second a new girl walks in. Hyde Mary nods with a grim face, basically admitting the rumors about the leader's behavior are probably spot on. Wim drops his head and lets out a heavy sigh, crushed that he couldn't earn enough trust to stay in the party. A nervous, familiar chuckle bursts from Wim's lips as he desperately tries to dodge the crushing tension hanging in the air. He jolts, throws his hand over his mouth in full-blown panic, and realizes he's slipped right back into that Kronos habit, the one he despised more than anything. Hyde Mary leans in with a gentle grin, then points out again that he still hasn't managed to fix that weird, unsettling laugh of his. Wim snaps his gaze away in shame and blurts out, "Do you find it disgusting, like his old leader used to?" Hyde Mary tilts her head and gently shakes it, smiling as she reassures him she finds absolutely nothing repulsive about it. She props her chin on her hand and admits she's obsessed with the way he laughs, because it feels exactly like him. Blushing under that compliment, she fumbled the moment of courage and muttered that she shouldn't say stuff like that, or he'd totally walk away with the wrong idea. Hyde Mary locks eyes with him, affection blazing, then keeps her cool and tells him she doesn't mind at all if he gets the wrong idea. Steam blasts from Wim's ears as he throws his hands up and frantically begs her to stop toying with him. A heavy silence crashes down as Wim scrambles to steady himself after that sudden romantic sucker punch. Wim's back on track, staring at his drink like it might explain everything, and admits he still can't wrap his head around why he got fired. Hyde Marie takes a slow sip, then drops it like it's nothing. He wiped out the floor boss all by himself. Wim snaps her eyes wide, totally confused, and demands to know what she's talking about with that ridiculous statement. She slams her glass down and swears the rest of Dragon's Wings can't cut down the boss, so it's only him standing in the way. Panicking, Wim flails his hands and insists it was all a misunderstanding, saying that finishing blow was pure luck. He insists the win didn't come from luck, it was the total damage everyone else in the party stacked up, one hit at a time. Hyde Marie snaps him down on the spot, insisting the floor boss took 0 damage from anyone except Wim. Wim lets out a nervous laugh, certain Hyde Marie is wildly overrating him as a support mage. He swears it's not arrogance, it's desperation, because he couldn't stand the thought of being a burden while everyone else flexed their incredible talents. He rubs his neck and blurts out, "Why does she think I'm so great?" while, in his own mind, he's still just a total failure. Mary's cheeks burn as she looks away, flustered and trembling, trying to choke out the truth she trusts him with her whole heart. Greta barges in at the exact moment, her face pinched with worry as she calls to Hyene across the counter. The waitress tells him, straight face, that she's lived in the city her entire life and she's never once heard of anyone taking down a floor boss alone. She snaps at Hyde Marie to quit her twisted habit of inventing bizarre tales just to flatter the thing she's been stalking. Greta blasts her for crossing the line, but Hidamari fires back. She swears she knows what's really going on because she secretly wiretapped the battle. The tavern roars on around them, but Hyde Mary's bombshell revelation hangs heavy in the air, sinking into every breath. Wim glares into his cup and mutters that they fired him only because nobody trusted him. Hyde Mary slams her hand on the table with a brutal thud, her face contorted in pure annoyance. She yells at Wim, demanding he snap out of his pathetic, wimpy attitude right this second. She whirls toward the counter, barks for a beer, and insults Greta as a cowgirl. Greta snaps that the mage can't hold his liquor at all, but Hidamari barrels in, cuts her off mid-sentence, and orders her to pour the drink anyway. Wim sits there, frozen in awkward silence, while Graticise watches and nods, then agrees to carry out just one drink. The waitress storms back in and slams a huge wooden tankard of beer right in front of the sulking girl. Hyde Mary immediately stumbles into a drunken rant, preaching cognitive dissonance and the fable of the fox and the grapes. Right as she's about to finish her point, her strength snaps, she faceplants onto the table and drops into a dead faint. Moments later, she jerked upright, demanding another drink, and Greta calmly shut her down because she was still on her first jug. Win snaps and tells them she's done for the day no more. That's it. Right before they head out, Hyde Marie snatches a business card and slides it across the table to her friend. Win snatches it up, reads the name Nachtlu, and freezes staring at the card like it just betrayed her. The card is stamped in full brown with the emblem of the strongest A-rank party, an elite badge that screams high status and means you'll face a brutally strict screening before you're even allowed in. Wim remembers how Hyde Mary got snatched up by this elite crew early on, and within no time, she shot up and made a name for herself. Flashback hits hard. Hyde Mary scrawls a note, then slips in an invitation for Wim to come to their party house the very next day. When he asks if he can just drop in, she tells him to work for them for a bit to get the experience and swears she'll back him and vouch for him. With cheeks burning, she grins and declares she's the 74th sage, and with her sights set on top brass, lining it all up is a piece of cake for her. Back in the present, groggy and half-drunk, Hyde Mary moans as Wim hauls her out of the inn under the cold night sky. Wim shoots Greta a heartfelt thank you for the meal, then carefully shifts the sleeping girl on his back to keep her comfortable. Greta asks if he needs a strengthening buff just to carry the weight, and Wim bursts out laughing, telling her she's not heavy at all. Hyde Mary mutters in her sleep that Grantor is weak, then rubs her cheek against his shoulder like she's clinging to the truth. Greta waves them off and snaps at Wim to watch himself, because those drunk adventurers are roaming the streets like they own the night. Wim trudged through the dim, cobblestone streets, completely swallowed by thoughts about that invitation. He's freaking out that if he joins Naklebel just because Hyde Mary recommended him, the other members will instantly judge him. A flicker of doubt slams across his face, because the second he thinks someone like him might just show up, he fears he'll only drag down an elite party. His biggest nightmare is that when his inevitable failure finally hits, Hyde Mary will turn on him and hate him. Suddenly, a glass bottle rockets out of the darkness straight at the two of them. A bottle slams into the ground beside them with a violent crack, and right on cue a bright visual effect pops up showing a clean 100 impact score. Raucus lets out mocking laughter from a nearby alleyway, shattering the night's silence. Wim snaps his head toward the shadows and finds two figures smirking as one taunts the thrower for missing the target completely. In the alley, one of the drunks cranes his head back and chugs the last bitter dregs straight from a dark bottle. With a satisfied exhale, he calls out at his turn and shoves the empty bottle into his equally wasted buddy's hands. Wim barrels through the jeers, dragging Hyde Mary past those angry men as they shout that their thrown bottle missed its mark. The adventurer keeps marching, never slowing down, so one of the men snaps at him in a hard, hostile voice. The drunk staggers ahead, face blazing red, grunting a dazed, confused sound while he tries and fails to make sense of his blurry vision. He strides into the light, squares up to Wim, and blasts him with a slur, demanding the young man's attention right there and then. Squinting at the figure perched on Wim's back, the man stammers, desperate to figure out who the heck he's carrying. Hyde Mary dozes on Wim's shoulder, then lets out a tiny hiccup that snaps the drunk's attention right away. Recognition hits the man's face as he jabs a finger at her and explodes, shouting that she's the thief he saw the other day. Wim freezes in confusion, blurting thief over and over as he wrestles to make the accusation stick to his sleeping friend. The men scream in perfect sync that she snatched up the whole stash of limited edition Snowball snacks while they were still trapped in line. Wim winces at the petty drama and feels sorry for it, but deep down, they think accusing her of being a thief just for shopping is completely ridiculous. With no patience for reason, the men demand instant satisfaction, then they order Wim to wake up so she can apologize right away. Wim's breath catches as he wears a worried look, and he realizes right then that no matter how much he talks, he's not getting out of this. The drunks hit their breaking point at his silence and roar at him to stop pretending they don't exist. One of the men lunges forward, yanks Hyde Mary in a rough grip, and screams at Wim to wake her up right this second. A magic crest suddenly erupts on Wim's chest as he quietly triggers his Pump-Up Zweimol ability, doubling his physical stats in an instant. In a flash of motion, Wim vanishes from the spot, and the man's hand snaps shut on nothing but empty air. Two drunks slumped in the dead, empty street, staring around like they'd lost their own minds, trying to figure out where their target vanished to. Racing through the alleyways, Wim shoots Hyde Mary a silent apology for her, remembering how she'd shared those exact candies with him. In the alley, the aggressive drunk just freezes with his mouth hanging open, still trying to wrap his head around the insane speed he's just witnessed. Wim shot an excuse through his mouth and slipped away from the confrontation, panicking that his sudden retreat might have only poured more fuel on their anger. The two men freeze in place, beads of cold sweat exploding across their faces as the truth of what they just stepped into finally lands. Panic rips through their eyes the moment it clicks the sleeping girl is none other than the infamous Hyde Mary of Naklebel. They lean in and whisper in panic, hearts pounding, trying to figure out if the guy moving with that unreal speed is part of that elite crew too. One of the men drops his gaze to the ground, his face drained of color, and asks his partner if they spotted the damage he left behind. Deep, jagged gouges ripped through the stone pavement where Wim slammed forward with his kickoff, and the damage screamed just how terrifying that strike really was. Wim barrels through the city streets toward the clock tower, totally oblivious to the terror he sparked Mary's lock tight on his back. He finally grinds to a stop at a safe distance, wheezing hard, and convinces himself the drunks won't track him down. Safe and sound, Hyde Mary lets out a satisfied groan in her sleep, totally clueless about the chaos she just unleashed. Wim suddenly feels Hyde Mary's weight shift on his back, snaps, "Hey, are you awake?" Then immediately checks whether she's sober enough to stand and walk by herself. She clamps her arms around his neck, refusing to let go, and whispers sweetly that she can't move not yet. Wim's mind slips back to that earlier promise she'd personally vouch for him and pull him into her elite party just to calm all his fears. Self-doubt gnaws at him as he wonders if someone with his low standing has any business ever joining a legend like Naklibble. He can't stop thinking about the massive distance between them because she isn't just a rare sage, she's also a top-tier candidate clawing her way toward the guild's very top brass. Guilt crushes him as he tells himself one brutal truth: he can't risk causing more trouble for the only person who's ever treated him with real kindness. A blazing memory snaps back. Mary shouts at him to just come with her, shoving right past every ounce of his insecurity with pure emotional force. Her hand clamps hard onto his shoulder, yanking him back into the moment and locking him there with her steady, unshakable support. She leans in close and whispers into his ear, promising him endless possibilities and swears he'll finally see how valuable he really is once he's standing beside Naklibble. With a gentle but ironclad voice, she orders Wim to quit holding himself back and finally live his life exactly the way he wants. He can't stop seeing her smiling face in his head, flooding him with warmth and that kind of unconditional trust he's been starving for far too long. Wim stammers, shoots out a heartfelt thank you, eyes shining, because she found him when he was sinking in the absolute black of his despair. With a fresh surge of courage, he tells her, "If I'm going to live free, then you get to live free too. Do it your way, with no strings attached." Trying to snap back to reality, he awkwardly blurts out that since she's awake and sober, she should get off him now. Hyde Mary shoots back a one-word refusal, then buries her face deeper in his coat, cheeks burning as she tries to hide the flush. When he demands an explanation, she just mumbles that his back feels perfect and then flat out refuses to move. She leans in and murmurs that he's warm, that his back is broad, and in that moment, she feels safe and at peace and she refuses to let it go. Her voice slips into a tender plea as she begs him to keep her right there just for a little while longer. With her sudden closeness making his face burn, Wim stammers yes, then decides no matter how long it'll be him carrying her until she's ready. Stepping into the quiet night, Wim kept his silence tight and swore he'd bury his past for good, giving everything he had, starting tomorrow. Naklible's emblem looms with pride, claiming the throne as the biggest A-rank party in the land, over 100 elite fighters under one banner. A giant, majestic mansion towers under the sky, and it's the party house of a guild that's already crushed 30 of every floor boss anyone's ever seen. A stoic guard in bulky armor stands guard at the iron gates, eyes blazing as he sweeps the area for the faintest hint of trouble. Wim paces in a tight loop in front of the entrance, sprinting back and forth on pure nerves, his anxiety blasting off him in waves while the guard keeps his eyes locked on him. Sweat streams down Wim's face as he freezes in place, consumed by self-doubt, praying he isn't just a mistake in a place this prestigious. The guard squints at the jittery guy and snaps his eyes shut on the truth. This pacing young man reeks of suspicion. Driven by sheer resolve, the guard strides up to the shaking wreck and barks, demanding to know what he's doing with the guild. Wim jolts in fear at the sudden confrontation, stammers out nonsense, and scrambles to explain why he's even there. Panic crashes in full force, and Wim slips up, letting out his infamous creepy laugh right in the guard's face. The guard jerks back in panic, thinking that sudden movement and that strange noise mean the attacker is about to snatch a weapon. Desperate to calm things down, Wim scrambles for the business card Hyde Mary handed him and thrusts it forward with shaking hands. The guard's face snaps from suspicion to straight-up shock as he reads the card and realizes that this suspicious boy isn't a stranger at all. He's one of her friends. Wim's eyes snap shut and she blinks in pure confusion, thrown off by the guard's eerie stress on the word her. Hyde Mary bursts into the scene, grinning like sunshine, and welcomes Wim straight into the headquarters of Naklibble. Wim steps inside and blurts out a stunned gasp, his eyes snapping wide at the breathtaking luxury of the grand hall where a sparkling fountain steals the show. When Hidamari points out the huge training hall and the cafeteria, Wim can't help but stare. This place feels less like a party house and more like a royal mansion. He meekly slips away through the grand corridors, shrinking more and more in that massive, overwhelming space. Guard Abel swallows his pride, apologizes for his earlier hostility, then bluntly shoots down Wim, saying she looks nothing like the person he was told to expect. Abel's glaring sighs and sharp questions leave no doubt he can't believe he'd pull off that kind of mistake, because the description he got was nothing like the truth. Blushing hard and rattled, Hyde Mary yells at the top of her lungs for the guard to shut up while he swears she described Wim as this gallant masculine man. Mary, desperate to bury her embarrassment, yanks Wim away from the guard and charges down the hallway. They storm into the main hall packed with elite adventurers trading rumors, buzzing with energy, and gearing up for quests. Hyde Mary stops in front of the seated figure and, with perfect formality, declares that she's brought the recruit just like she promised. Wim feels a sharp, piercing stare lock onto him as a woman with long, sleek hair coolly acknowledges that he's finally arrived. Wim freezes in stunned silence, eyes widening as he instantly recognizes the intense, unstoppable aura blasting off the woman in front of him. He realizes he's standing face to face with Camilla, the silver hair, the legendary leader of Naklibal. Camilla sizes him up from head to toe, her stare razor sharp, and snorts that he's way smaller than the warrior she thought she'd meet. She bursts into a hearty laugh, teasing him about that rumor that he's some handsome masculine hero while Mary is freaking out in the background. A massive armored gauntlet thrusts toward him, offering a handshake that slams with the sheer power of her strength. Wim shoots a nervous glance at her, grips her hand tight, and introduces himself as a former member of Dragon's Wings. Right then and there, he fully steps into his new life. Camilla grins with real respect, shocked by the killer grip strength tucked inside this just-a-newbie recruit. She bows him in with a warm formal welcome to Naklibal, then drops the bombshell he to Mary already spilled every detail about what he can do. Wim blurts out, stammering and sweating, that his mana runs low and he only ever did chores, and Camilla instantly presses him to say what his exact job was in his old party. He tells them his job was only the non-combat grind, scanning for enemies and handling all the office work. The second he starts to say he got fired, Mary snaps into panic mode and slams him shut, terrified he'll spill all the ugly details. Camilla tunes out the bickering and calmly assigns the women to rearguard duty, setting them up for their upcoming scouting dive. Shock hits Wim hard as he stammers, because he can't wrap his head around the fact that they're about to march into the labyrinth right now. Camilla storms off, saying practical experience beats everything, while Wim is left frozen, scrambling to make sense of the sudden command. Panic crashes in as he blurts that it's way too soon and admits he's never even raided with a crowd this massive before. Hyde Mary whips around with a bright, radiant grin and promises him everything's gonna be just fine. Wim's frozen in place, eyes wide with full-blown terror, because her optimism doesn't convince her of anything danger is right in front of them. The story plunges into cold, stone-walled corridors deep inside the deadly labyrinth. Every member of the Naklibal Guild gathers in solemn silence around a glowing stone pillar right in the heart of the chamber. Ancient runes burst into life across the structure as the magical device charges up, ready to tear through space and activate its transport function. A blinding column of light erupts from the pillar boom. Teleportation is fully charged and ready to fire. This device is a teleportation circle, an absolute lifeline installed on certain levels so adventurers can slip through the maze instead of getting trapped. Beat the floor boss and bam, these circles light up, letting parties blast through multiple floors in an instant using secret routes. The massive party kicks off their march, and their armored boots pound the cold stone floor like thunder. Wim slams to a stop, baffled, when Hyde Mary abruptly freezes and blocks the path right in front of him. The other guild members stop dead in their tracks and whip their heads back like they can feel the whole air change as the procession finally grinds to a halt. A battle-scarred veteran studies the scene with a hard stare, gripping his patience tight as he waits for the leaders to finally break the deadlock. Hyde Mary stands there stone still, her face pure steel, and prepares to trigger a security protocol that only non-members can be spared. Caught off guard by the sudden halt, Wim whips around and demands his friend explain what's going on and why everyone froze mid-step. She cranks out a thick cloth, then shoots him a sorry look and begs him to wear the blindfold for just a little while. Hyde Mary tells him straight up, since he's technically an outsider, he'll never be allowed to lay eyes on the guild's secret teleportation line. Wim snaps the blindfold on without a single word, knowing that shielding the valuable route intel is just a perfect advantage. Blinded completely, he stands there, frozen in anticipation until Hyde Mary finally orders him to reach out and grab her. Wim clamps down on her hand with a hard grip, yanking her along to lead him through the pitch-black dark. Silence clings to the air as they stand there, hand in hand, while everyone else in the party stares at the display. Hyde Mary turns crimson and squeals in his head, absolutely giddy that he's got the nerve to hold her hand in public. Wim wildly flails his hands in a full panic, blurting that he needs to grab her shoulder instead because he can't see a thing. He pleads with Hyde Mary to stop toying with him while he has no clue she's secretly loving every second of holding his hand. With a blindfold on and his friend steering him, the mage trails the party as they slam through secret teleport circles to surge forward. The crew finally reaches the monster-sized architecture of the 97th floor, hidden deep inside that endless labyrinth. Wim can't believe her eyes. An A-rank party barrels through the dungeon at lightning speed, and they somehow hit a floor this deep faster than she ever thought possible. His heart starts sprinting with pure anxiety as he tells himself, over and over, that he's worthless and brings nothing, just cold, naked lies. He can't stop worrying that if he keeps just copying everyone, he'll end up dragging this huge, talented crew down. Hyde Mary shoots a quick look over her shoulder at the mumbling recruit, clocking it instantly. His nerves are real because this is his very first day with them. She catches herself getting annoyed. Then, nope. She breaks into a smile, thinking, turns out staying cautious is the smartest move an adventurer can make. Wim yelps in shock as he bumps into something out of nowhere, then whips around and realizes Camilla is right behind him, towering there. Silver-haired, the leader leans in, smiles at him, and softly tells the young boy to stop clenching like he's about to explode. She reminds him, you already wiped this floor's boss clean with your last beer-fueled party, so quit stressing. Camilla tells him, just do what you can, then makes it crystal clear that today's goal is simple map the area. Her unexpected kindness crashes over him, and Wim's eyes sting with tears as he chokes out a trembling, shaky acknowledgement. Camilla leans in and gives him one final reassurance. Naklabal is packed with good people, and it's the push he needs to finally let his guard down. Wim's face flips from pure anxiety to razor-sharp focus as he starts sweeping the area, hunting for the smallest sign that something's off. A weird anomaly snaps his focus and he freezes on the spot, panicked, staring up at the dungeon walls. He hesitates, then finally whispers to Hyde that he thinks he may have heard something, but he's terrified it's just in his head. On the edge of reporting it, he can't shake the feeling that this strange sound is a bad omen, like a hidden trap is lurking right nearby. He decides to play it safe, then stretches his magical search range wide enough to chase down that gut feeling that something is seriously wrong. He thrusts his hand forward, pours mana into a razor-sharp detection spell, and fires it straight into the dark. A blazing, intricate magic circle erupts in front of his palm as he fires up his search ability and rips the area open for answers. The spell flared open the hallway in front of him, and his magic vision suddenly exposed the dungeon's secret bones, hidden rooms, buried pathways, and every dark truth lurking ahead. His eyes blow wide with shock as the scan proves he's right and shows a clear, deadly threat hiding just ahead. He clings to the standing order. If he spots anything, he's got to report it to Camilla right away, using transmission magic. He steals one last breath of courage, nods at the command, and readies himself to warn the leader about the danger coming fast. The party keeps climbing that massive staircase, totally oblivious to the deadly mechanism already set off in the shadows. Wim breaks formation, then politely calls out to Camilla, asking for just a moment of her time. Camilla tilted her head just a touch, clocked him as Wim Boy, and leaned in, waiting for his report. He lays it out with laser precision. This rockfall trap is set to snap on the upper left side at exactly 45 meters. Camilla locks eyes with the report's claims, her sharp stare cutting right through the tension like it's lying to her. Wim stammers, grits his teeth, and holds his position, convinced there's a 90 chance this activation trap will get delayed. With a flick of her hand, Camilla tells him, like it's nothing, to air his findings on the public channel next time. Time Wim clenches up, swallowing hard, because the idea of talking to the whole gigantic party at once scares the life out of her. He clenches his courage, fires up the transmission magic, and blasts his voice so it echoes to every single member. He delivers an insanely precise report, pinpointing the rockfall's exact mass, its shape, and the exact spot where it's about to smash down. A wave of confusion crashes over the vanguard as battle-hardened warriors stare in shock at the sudden announcement. Doubt erupts through the ranks, and Wim snaps into panic, terrified he just made a deadly mistake. While Wim breaks into a sweat, Hyde Mary smirks like she's won already as Camilla stays ice calm, steering her tank straight into the threat. Abel steps up like a storm, no hesitation at all, and vows he'll handle the trap himself. The armored warrior charges straight into the danger zone, hoisting his massive shield like he's bracing for impact. He plants himself on the trigger point, bracing hard as the hidden mechanism clicks beneath his boots and springs to life. A colossal stone pillar crashes out of the shadows above, screaming straight down to crush the defender into paste. With a thunderous boom, Abel snaps his shield up at the last second, catches the monolith mid-fall, and slams its momentum to a dead stop. Unscathed and stone-faced, Abel shouts that the trap's finally cleared as dust swirls down around him. Camilla nods, satisfied with the win, while the rest of the party freezes staring in total shock. The adventurer's words died in his throat as disbelief hit because the trap matched Wim's description perfectly, down to the last detail. They snap into stunned, unbelieving looks because they've never seen a scout map a trap's form and then hold his ground, waiting on it to spring. Wild speculation spirals, everyone's asking if that god-tier precision is the real secret power fueling Dragon's Wings. While Hyde Mary flashes a Cheshire Cat grin, a panicked Wim misreads the silence and convinces himself he's in serious trouble. Hyde Mary grins as she brags that Wim's normal is anything but. Then she swears he'll prove it's not just a lucky fluke. While the battle finally pauses, the party sinks into a stunned silence. Camilla locks onto the horizon, eyes wide, wrestling with the shocking revelation. She jerks in shock, realizing Wim is tossing out high-level detection magic like it's nothing, like he's just breathing air. Her mind whips back to the Dragon's Wings days, a party that shot to the top rank in record time. Confusion gnaws at her as she can't believe it. How was a mage with skills so game-breaking kept in the shadows, only to be fired right after? Wim's voice cuts through the silence over the transmission, snapping for attention again. He spots the humidity spike and notices a creepy, suspicious silence from the usual low-flying winged insects. The veterans lean in, eyes locked on him as he explains that these environmental changes are the warning sign of a predator lurking nearby. Wim realizes too late that they've stumbled into the hunting grounds of a gigantic, hostile monster, and they never even noticed. He clocks the danger Zeratin, the great tortoise, and he instantly pitches a detour to slip right past the beast. Camilla narrows her eyes and demands he confirm no doubt whether his report about the monster's territory is rock solid. Wim locks eyes with her, nerves sparking, and she confirms almost trembling that he's a full 90 sure about his assessment. Camilla lets out a frustrated sigh and snaps that he should use public transmissions for high probability threats like she's done waiting for his indecision. Wim drops his eyes in shame, stammers out a shaky apology, convinced he's somehow angered the leader. Panic tightens its grip in his mind as he starts convincing himself again that he just made another catastrophic mistake. Camilla snaps at him to hand the search off to Simon, then orders him straight to the front lines. Wim's stomach drops the second he hears the order. He reads it as a punishment and instantly thinks he's been fired from his role. Camilla steps up, fires up the group, and declares, "We're not detouring, we're hunting the great tortoise." She snaps her piercing eyes back on the recruit and demands to see what he can do right there in real combat as a grantor. A terrified Wim realizes if he fails right here, the world shuts its doors and there's nowhere left to run. Fear tries to swallow him, but he clenches his fists anyway and vows to give it everything to be truly useful. Camilla snaps into action and demands an enemy status report from the other scout right on the spot. Simon flicks on his detection magic, then calls out that the target is dead asleep about 200 meters ahead. The leader snaps out orders at lightning speed. He commands the able fighters to seize the vanguard and tells Hydamari to get ready to unleash her spells. The elite of Naklibel roar their agreement in perfect unison as they gear up to hit the battlefield. Camilla jabs her finger at Wim and orders him to take on the crucial job keeping Abel powered up with his buffs. Wim blurts out a shaky yes, squaring up and forcing his nerves into place for the fight that decides his whole future. Wim shuts his eyes and whispers his personal mantra, choosing seclusion so he can help people quietly without ever drawing attention. He realizes his only mission was simple: find a way to help people, quietly, from the shadows. A razor-sharp stare slices through his thoughts, and he realizes reality has veered wildly off his perfect path. A colossal great tortoise looms and crushes debris in the distance, ominous as hell, while Wim stands there, frozen in terror before the beast. Hydamari shoves him forward, shouting that they should strike now, while the monster is too busy munching to notice them. With everyone watching, she tells him this is his golden shot to prove right to the whole guild that he's got what it takes. The elite of Naklebel Camilla included locks eyes on the pair, staring them down with razor-sharp, no-nonsense judgment. Wind jolts under their collective stare, panic flooding in as they try to keep it together under the weight of performing for the legendary party. His heart thunders against his ribs as he vows to fix that earlier blunder and stop any more trouble from happening. Crumbling under a tidal wave of self-doubt about his communication skills, he barely catches Hydamari shouting his nickname. Hydamari finally storms his deprecating trance and shouts his name so close to his ear that it yanks him back to reality. She grins with total confidence, then calls on him to power up her usual support buff for her ice spear attack. Wim watches her from behind, speechless as she hefts that massive weapon, still reeling from how casually she demands the usual. A rush of nostalgia crashes over him when he recalls their duo dives, and he realizes this exact familiar rhythm is what he's been craving. A real smile bursts onto his face as the crushing weight of everything finally slips off his shoulders. Hydamari, he pumps his fists again, lifts his head, and declares he's ready to fight. Hydamari's unique magical device starts to wake up, gears clack, mechanical parts click, and everything locks into place for the moment of activation. She plants a fearless stance, grips her weapon tight, and declares it's finally time to blast the guild with the real power she's been hiding. Wim instantly spots the upgrades to her gear, and her eyes light up. She tripled the density while shrinking it down, and that is seriously impressive. He flashes a grin of pure admiration, thinking, yeah, this is exactly the brilliant engineering I expected from her. Hydamari fires up the generation sequence, her eyes blazing as she kicks off the spell. Mana starts to gather in the air, crackling and sparkling as the magic finally takes shape. Zeraton the Great Tortoise abruptly stops mid-bite, swings its massive head around, and finally locks onto the danger. A crushing silence slams down on the battlefield as that colossal monster fixes its eyes on the two tiny adventurers. A colossal spear of solid ice rips out of the sky with a thunderous crack, hanging there like a death sentence ready to come crashing down. A colossal projectile hangs above the ruins, looming so hard it swallows the pillars and crushes the adventurer's hopes beneath it. Wim throws his gaze upward in pure awe, realizing that any normal mage would be totally stumped by just how massive this magic is. Hydemary laughs like she owns the world, gripping powers that work on rules way beyond anything modern magic has ever touched. An infographic spills the truth. Sorcerers and priests get boxed into specific magic types, but sages smash the rules and do something totally different. The text basically declares Hydemary's sage class the absolute peak because it lets her wield every kind of magic that exists. Hydemary leans in and tells Wim the truth. Sages can conjure the raw magic units needed to invent brand new spells from nothing. She strikes a dramatic pose and officially stamps her approval on the grant Grantor Wim Strauss provided. Wim grins at his friend, then taps accept to kick off the enchantment process. Wim concentrates his mana and slams the solid frozen enchantments right onto the glowing magic circle. The magic circle swells outward and snaps into place, locking tight with the enormous ice structure hanging over the ruins. Hydemary's breath catches because instead of boosting her, he slammed his strengthening magic straight into the spell construct itself. The huge ice projectile slams into a change the moment the enchantment hits. Its shape snaps into a razor-sharp, terrifying weapon. Hydemary screams the order to fire as the gigantic tortoise rams forward, scraping dangerously close to where they stand. With a deafening roar, that massive ice spear rockets forward, barreling in to stop the monster that's coming straight for it. The projectile rockets forward at mind-numbing speed, streaking through the sky like a glowing blur that rips the atmosphere apart. A brutal explosion detonates on impact, blasting shards of ice and wreckage screaming through the air in every direction. NACT Libel's members, Camilla included, erupt into full-blown screams as a shockwave rockets straight at them. The impact hits like a thunderclap, launches the giant beast off the ground, and hurls it crashing hard into the ruin walls. Adventurers threw their hands over their faces and hunkered down, bracing for the gale force, winds blasting them from the impact. The great tortoise gets obliterated, its shell caves in under the force, while enchanted ice spikes tear straight through its body. Shaking with cold, Wim blurts out an apology to protect Mary, but panic hits as he fears he accidentally cranked the magic power way too high. Hydemarie beams and tells him it was perfect, then points out that he's officially shown the party what he can do. With a proud grin, she whips around to the leader and asks Camilla what she thinks about Wim's absolute showstopper performance. A sharp crack booms from the leader's direction, and everyone's eyes snap to her armor. Camilla stared down at her shoulder pauldron, her expression locked tight as she examined the brutal damage that just appeared. Wim catches a crack in her precious armor and immediately panics, sure he's messed up again. Camilla snaps at Vimboy in a grave voice, and he jolts so hard he can barely speak. His answer tumbles out in a terrified stammer. She shrugs off the damage and sharply orders him to buff the shield unit because a wyvern attack is about to crash in. She turns away from him and, with purpose, demands to finally watch his defensive enchantment in action this time. Wimbo's nerves are on full blast. Then he blurts out, shouting that he's got it, and you can practically see the relief hit as he realizes he still matters. Hydemary stares at the scene with a smug, cat-like smirk, and you can practically feel her certainty. Camilla totally loved what she just saw. Wim clenched his fist with pure determination because to him, this was his second chance, and he swore he'd give everything he had. Mary lets out a weary sigh at his stubborn density, muttering that not reading the room by now is basically a full-blown illness. The other party members mutter in stunned disbelief as they realize the spear's speed is invisible to the eye, while Mary hides a sly smile because she finally gets what he's really worth. Two grizzled veterans lock eyes with the pair, sweat pouring down their faces, shaking with fear at the terrifying power of this mysterious new Grantor. Hydemary shoots her friend a suspicious stare and Wim instantly panics, blurting out that he didn't say a thing at all. A towering armored warrior steps into the spotlight, flashes a polite grin, and introduces himself Abel, the squad leader. Wim gapes in disbelief, realizing the kid standing there is the same age as him and somehow already leads his own whole unit. Abel tilts his head, baffled, as he waits for the frozen recruit to finally answer his greeting. Panic crashes into Wim's mind the moment he realizes he has zero clue what to say to a stranger. As Abel leans in to ask if he's okay, Can only manages to blurt out a messy storm of incoherent panic noises. Wim's spiraling thoughts crash into self-hatred, convinced his awkward silence is making the leader see him as utterly disgusting. A brutal, dark image of rejection crashes into his head, and pure certainty locks in. He's convinced Abel will end up hating him, the same way everyone always does. To Abel's shock, a blinding smile erupts on his face, and he soothes the jittery mage, telling him to just relax. Wim's cheeks flare red, and a warm, happy swell spreads through his chest when he realizes someone just showed him unexpected kindness. Abel brings up defensive buffs, and Wim quietly admits he's still new to them. Another party member jumps in, shocked that grantors are almost unheard of in Naklable because that job is so unpopular, it basically disappears overnight. Wim tells him that his magic feeds off awareness, and it only kicks in once the target openly says, "I approve" out loud. They spell out that these buffs can crank up your physical stats like strength and speed, or level your weapons to hit harder and feel sharper. Right when he's laying out that the target has to be willing, a harsh, stern voice suddenly cuts in, shutting him down mid-sentence. A huge, scarred brute strides up and growls that he wants nothing to do with buffs. Wim's body goes ice cold. His face twists with total disbelief as the sudden rejection hits him like a truck. The man says, "I'm Mark," then leans in for more details, shooting off a quick apology in case his straight-up bluntness landed rude. Mark breaks down how buffs twist the way your body feels, then drops the bombshell he once had a brutal run-in with a grantor that still haunts him. He remembers that last mage who slammed on attributes without a shred of care until the spell ripped control away from his own body mid-fight. Wim quickly tells him, "Relax, I only use beginner-level buffs and they won't cost you control of your body." He insists it's a mix of simple effects working in perfect sync, but Mark's face just tightens more and more. Wim recoils when the veteran glares at him, pure menace on his face, like he's ready to tear him apart. Mark bares his teeth and snaps, demanding to know if Wim thinks he's an amateur just because he dared to ask a question. Tara's smile spreads over Wim as he convinces himself he somehow managed to piss off the scary veteran. Mark quickly clears it up. He isn't raging at all, he just wants the full details so he can learn. Wim clicks into it. Mark's intimidating questions aren't malice at all. They're just the relentless precision of a high-grade accuser tearing through a naked lie. He tells the tank his senses won't shift for a second, but Mark presses him hard, asking if he's 100 certain. Mark lunges in with a vicious "ha," and that sharp laugh slams straight into the mage's nerves, sending fresh panic rippling through them. A nail-biting silence crashes in while Wim fights to decode the terrifying sound spilling from the veteran. Confusion sweeps through the shield unit as they doubt Wim's claim that his buff changes absolutely nothing about how it feels. Wim asks, "Can I break down how it works?" and swears that the real secret of his skill is this: your senses don't get thrown off at all. Mark stammered out a shaky, "Sure," clearly not ready for a lecture, but he'd listen anyway. Wim's face bursts into a bright smile when it hits him. This is the very first time anyone has ever asked him for a real explanation, like he actually matters. He bursts into a fiery lecture, laying out the difference between the rusting method and the casting method of application magic. Wim points out that since every adventurer has a totally different body and strength level, there's no way a single one-size-fits-all buff can ever land right. He warns that reckless magical upgrades can shatter a user's bones on the spot, and Mark blurts out, "Yeah, right away." Mark stares in awe at the recruit's brains, gushing that Naklabel's elite standards are exactly how you forge experts like them. Wim barrels through another rapid-fire academic rant, blasting a non-stop wave of complicated magical theory that zips right over everyone's heads. Wim snaps to attention, realizes he's been rambling non-stop, and cuts himself off with a sheepish grin as he blurts out an apology. Mark waves off the apology, but the sheer onslaught of information leaves him looking dazed. Wim tells them he crammed 7 defense enchantments and 25 sensory enchantments into one perfectly balanced spell, like he fused his whole toolkit into a single, unstoppable cast. Mark throws his hands up, yells at him to stop, and gets absolutely crushed by the flood of technical details. The whole squad freezes in stunned silence, locked on the tiny mage who just casually dropped a thesis like it was nothing. Wim recoils in pure fear, convinced his way, too excited explanation has blown everything up again, just like always. Mark jolts back to his senses and, stunned, blurts out if Wim is really saying he can dish out dozens of enhancements all at once. Wim calmly admits his mana runs dangerously low, so he has to shred the magic and apply it perfectly to make it work. Mark leans in close, double-checking one last time that his body's senses will stay exactly the same as always. Wim nods hard, saying the only thing Mark will really notice is that his body feels stronger than it ever has. Mark shuts his eyes tight, presses a hand to his chest, and solemnly declares, "Approved. The grant is in." The rest of the squad just stares at him, stunned, and blurts out, "Are you sure you want to trust this newcomer?" Mark grins from ear to ear and says Wim's massive knowledge is all the proof he needs to show he's got the chops. Wim stands there, stunned, his heart punching against his chest as the truth hits. Someone finally trusts him. Tears burn at the edges of his eyes as he swears no matter what he'll give his absolute best and repay that trust. Wim slams the spell into action, and a swirling, glowing magic circle snaps into existence around Mark's torso. The battle-hardened tanker gasps. His eyes blow wide as the enchantment's magic finally sinks into his body. Mark rubs his chin like he's cracking a mystery, humming under his breath while he studies every tiny shift in his body. Mark and Abel face off across the stone training hall, both ready to see what this brand new enhancement magic can really do. Mark suddenly rockets forward and slams a heavy punch into Abel's shield, testing just how strong his new power really is. Two warriors slam into each other with jaw-dropping force, trading blows at blinding speed like their heavy armor somehow weighs nothing. Wim hovers on the sidelines, sweating through his nerves, wringing his hands as he finally blurts out, "So how does the magic feel?" Mark whips his gaze to him with a deadly serious look and cuts in, saying, "You don't even need words to describe it." He leans in, stunned, and says he can control his body even better than he ever could in his physical prime. Abel nods, grinning like he can't believe it, because her body feels so weightless, it almost seems unreal. Wim lets out a relieved breath, clutches his chest, and whispers, "Thank God," because he didn't accidentally hurt them. The moment the Granter showed up, the other shield knights surged in like a tidal wave, barking for him to hurry and buff them too. Win flashes a bright, genuine smile and happily agrees to step in and boost the rest of the squad. The story slams onto the dungeon floor, an endless stretch of towering pillars where the main force finally gathers. Wim suddenly starts trembling, like his senses are getting smothered by a huge, hostile presence lurking just within reach. He mutters, "They're here," and his instincts blare at full volume because he knows a major threat has just landed. A teammate spots Wim shaking and demands to know if he's alright, but Wim snaps back, something huge is about to hit. Camilla instantly feels the threat coming and screams for everyone to get ready because this is battle and they're about to start it right now. Wim yanks his collar tight and locks in, eyes sharp with pure, unstoppable determination. From the darkness above, a nightmare-winged demon drops in its head is a multi-eyed skull staring straight through you. That creature's swarm of eyes jerk wildly, and it unleashes a brutal, guttural growl that drips pure menace. It lingers in the dungeon's high arch, screeching as it dives straight for the adventurers who refuse to back down. Energy surges inside the monster's mouth as it snarls, ready to blast a devastating breath attack at any second. The shield unit surges forward as one, locking up in a solid wall, roaring a war cry while they brace themselves for impact. The demon spits out a roaring sphere of magical fire, and it rockets straight for the defensive line like it's got nowhere else to be. A roaring fireball crashes into the magically reinforced shields, and the vanguard gets swallowed by a blinding burst of light. To everyone's jaw-dropping shock, the attack didn't just get stopped, it got violently kicked right back at the caster. The demon lets out a blood-chilling shriek as its own fireball blasts it out of the sky and smashes it straight into the ground. Spectators burst into shocked gasps, yelling that the shield unit just pulled off a crazy high-level reflection maneuver. Behind his shield, Mark freezes in place, eyes locked forward as sweat rips down his face in pure, jaw-dropping shock. He whips around to his squad mates, voice shaking, and demands to know if they truly just pulled off a reflection. All the other knights blurted out that this was their very first time ever, and they couldn't help wondering if it was pure, unreal magic. Mark glares into the distance, a twisted grin stuck on his face, and he refuses to accept that something as simple as a boost could pull off a feat this massive. Camilla screams the order to fire, and the long-range units unleash their attack on the spot. Arrowfire and crackling magic spells slam down on the wyvern in a dazzling storm of pure, violent destruction. A mage bellows the incantation for Jupiter's spear and hurls it down, crackling lightning, smashing into the beast like a thunderbolt from the sky. The smoke finally thins, and there's Guji, standing there untouched, unleashing a taunting growl like it owns the battlefield. Camilla stares at the failure with ice-cold precision, realizing their attacks didn't even leave a mark. She spots the rare gleam in its eyes and realizes a protective anti-magic coating has been laid over every scale. The leader snaps to a conclusion they're up against a bizarre wyvern subspecies that laughs at standard magic. Wim just stands there, frozen in silence, because this foe feels unstoppable and he has no clue what to do. Camilla shoots her hand up, barking orders for the whole party to back away and clear the area. With a confident smirk, she announces that the time has finally come for her to seize the stage. Her cape snaps and billows as she strides forward, unleashing a crushing aura of pure power. Hyde Mary grins at Camilla and tells her, "Relax, I am handing the rest of this fight to your steady, capable hands." Camilla's thoughts snap back to that wild reflection, move the shield unit pulled off earlier. She's blown away, 5 different people pull off that brutal skill in perfect sync, like they're one mind in 5 bodies. An intense curiosity surges through her when she finally sees the untapped power in Wim's magic. She can't stop wondering what kind of monster she'd turn into if that same buff slammed into her own body. The unknown thrills her so hard she grins, already picturing herself shattering her own physical limits. She snaps around to the rookie and barks, "Vim boy," to yank his attention right now. Wim darts over with shaking nerves and asks if she wants him to slap a buff on her before the fight. Camilla demands he unleash every single offensive buff in his entire arsenal. Wim crunches the numbers and warns that going beyond a 3 times increase is where safe stops. Camilla narrows her eyes and fires off an accusation. She says he's playing it safe, daring him to go even further. Wim spirals in panic, terrified that pushing her power too far will tear her body apart. Ignoring the warning, Camilla throws her hands up and demands a power boost 10 times over. Wim's mind shrieks. She can't even wrap her head around the insanity of what she's being asked to do. He blurts out that kind of power up is straight up suicidal, but she shuts him down and won't hear a single word of reason. Sweat drenches his face as he finally grasps it. This leader isn't playing around, not one bit. He quietly admits, almost like he's surrendering, that it might be possible, and that slips right into a decision that seals his fate. Hyde Mary flashes a sadistic grin and whispers that she can't wait to see the results. Wim is shaking in front of the leader, and he's been shoved into casting the deadliest buff of his entire life. Wim hurls himself into the spell, his hand blazing with light as he launches the whole complex sequence. A glowing digital grid slams over Camilla's silhouette as the spell, Analyze, sweeps her whole physical form in a blink. Wim stared at her biology like it was unreal, wondering if she was even human as she marveled at her insane muscle and bone density. His mind whirls through calculations, pinning down every fulcrum and center of gravity to squeeze out the absolute best from his magical enhancement. He locks in a strategy built for maximum efficiency and the tiniest risk, then casts Bowen, pushing even the smallest parts of her body into play. The spell Enchant crashes into Camilla, and her eyes fly wide as that massive power floods through her veins. A wicked smirk flickers across the leader's face as overwhelming power surges through her enhanced body. She yanks out her massive blade and lunges at the beast, shouting the name of her weapon, Great Executioner, like a promise that blood's about to spill. Camilla stands rock steady in the wreckage, dust swirling around her, and she glares down the horrific wyvern like it's no threat at all. She explodes forward at full speed, charging straight at the flying monster with her blade poised to crush it with one brutal strike. Her eyes narrow with laser focus as she unleashes her signature multiplication skill, cranking the attack up to lethal levels. A massive blade of pure energy rips from her sword, carving through the air like lightning and slicing hard enough to split the sky itself. A pack of adventurers just stands there, totally locked in place, eyes glued to the wild spectacle exploding in front of them. They huddle in awe, whispering about the legendary Great Executioner sword until they finally see its real power for the very first time. Seasoned vets stared in disbelief because they'd never seen her multiplication skill explode into a size this massive before. Camilla grins and taunts the giant wyvern, calling it just a little bird, while she lines up the final blow like it's about to deliver judgment. The crowd stops breathing, stunned into silence by the sheer chaos she's about to unleash. With a thunderous roar, her blade slams into the beast's skull, and the whole dungeon shudders like it just got punched. Wim and the shield unit stand there with their jaws dropped, stunned speechless by the one-hit kill. Camilla shuts her eyes and lets out a slow breath, exhilaration glowing on her face as she soaks up the sweet aftertaste of the battle. She laughs in ragged bursts, riding that rush from her boosted combat until pure euphoria takes over. The dead silence shatters as the whole party explodes into cheers, thrusting their weapons high to celebrate their leader's hard-won victory. Wim barrels forward in full panic, frantically demanding to know if any pain or discord is striking through her body. Camilla peers down at the worried boy, and her face softens the moment she recognizes just how much he's been concerned. She yanks his hands into hers, grinning like crazy, praising his buff as insanely impressive, and insisting her body feels totally, perfectly fine. Wim finally lets out a huge breath of relief, admitting his fear was real. There's a 5 chance of side effects. Camilla tilts her head, baffled. Wait, you're freaking out over just a 5 risk. She just stares at him in stunned silence as he warns that, in the worst case scenario, those buffs could have ripped straight through her muscles. Wim swears muscle tears feel like pure torture, but Camilla just stares at him like he's clowning, like it's nothing more than a tiny paper cut. He keeps pushing about bodily discord, totally missing the fact that she brushes those injuries off like nothing. Camilla suddenly flings her head back and erupts into loud, unstoppable laughter at how ridiculous he is. With a wide grin, she leans down to meet the bewildered recruit's eyes and thinks, right then and there, Wim Strauss is the most fascinating man alive. Her mind tears through his resume, and the whole thing screams one thing. His labyrinth-level knowledge, top-tier search skills, and killer grant-making abilities are all elite. She stares at him like a hunter with a plan, telling herself she doesn't care about his past because all she wants is him for damn near nothing but trouble. Wim freezes in total confusion while she keeps laughing like a maniac, baffled by why she can't stop reacting this way. He starts sweating like crazy, freaking out over whether his buff is messing with her brain and if that strange behavior is just a side effect. Beneath the pale moonlight, the naked LaBelle party house towers over tonight's wild, loud celebration. Frothy mugs slam together with a thunderous cheer as every guild member hollers a toast to launch the festivities in full swing. The guildmaster bursts out that the labyrinth dive crushed at massive map progress, a fresh gold vein, and now everyone's practically begging to feast. The hall detonates into a storm of wild, messy cheers and pure, unfiltered joy shouting. Monica the mage beams with pure excitement, leans toward Vim, and tells him she's absolutely thrilled by his performance, calling it downright amazing. She scoots closer and quizzes her on the exact enchantment stamped onto Marie's spear, like she's convinced only someone with insane expertise could pull that off. Vim's cheeks burn as he admits he once dreamed of becoming a mage, so he studied that craft first, then kept pushing his skills even further. Monica lets out a big laugh, because the truth is, his techniques theory is way more complicated than it looks. Vim spirals into his own head, freaking out over how to talk to someone he barely even knows and scrambling to figure out what he's supposed to do next. Out of nowhere, a voice yells, "Vimson!" from under the table, yanking him out of his spiral and making him jump. Bettina suddenly pops in and introduces herself, then brings her boss Simon with her because she's here with the search and rescue unit. Vim freezes in full shock when he realizes he's standing face to face with Simon-san, the legendary captain of the search and rescue unit. Blinded by admiration, Vim stammers out that he's devoured every single one of Simon's books and articles. Simon starts firing off excited ideas about a trap he's cooking up, but Bettina cuts him off with a sharp reprimand the second he starts talking about studies at the banquet. A huge, rowdy guy barges in mid-scold, throws his head back laughing, and roars at them to forget it and just go grab a drink. Bettina snaps her frustration at Mark-san, calling out the fact that he's always drinking way too much. Mark laughs it off and then shoves a drink toward the little masked figure who's absolutely shaking with terror. Bettina shrugs off the antique chatter and yanks the conversation right back to the point, then fires the focus back at Vim like, "Anyway, listen." Simon blurts out praise for Vim's reflection upgrade, admits he never thought it'd work like that, and then fires the question, did Vim set out to get that exact result? Vim quickly snaps away the praise, insisting he only helped and that the party's skill was the real reason everything worked. Simon bursts out laughing, slaps Vim on the shoulder, and declares with full confidence that this kid is headed for big things. Vim freezes on the spot, cheeks burning, and can't figure out how to even breathe after his hero throws praise like that. Another member closes in, pouring out real regret for his own mess earlier that morning, and hails the improvement with total enthusiasm. He straight up admits he's been messing up too, and now he's scrambling to make things right after how he acted before. Vim lets out a shaky laugh, and inside he panics. His awkwardness feels like it's wrecking the whole good mood. The whole table goes still for a beat as everyone stares at Vim, and he lets out an awkward laugh just to claw his way out of the silence. Vim's mind is a panic alarm, screaming for an out he wants to vanish or even end it just to escape the suffocating pressure of everyone watching. The man blurts out that Heidmer's and swore Vim has his very own unique world. Mark snaps in with a headlock on Vim, grinning wide as he taunts, asking if the kid's ready to join Naklibble. Vim gets knocked off balance by all their kindness, but he stammers over whether he really belongs in a group like this. He brushes off the praise as just flattery, but the whole table is cheering for him like they truly mean it. A voice drops a hint that this guild is exactly where Vim can finally spread his wings for real. Vim watches them, stunned by the truth that even with all that chaos swirling around, they still move with this undeniable grace. A strange longing hits him, and he can't help wondering if this is finally the place where he truly belongs. Hyde, Mary tears into a loud crunch of a carrot, mouth stuffed, and still manages to thank Vim for all his hard work without slowing down. She chomps loudly, eyes glassy and unfazed, and still somehow manages to say thanks in her weird deadpan style. Everyone else watches her with amused smiles, like she's at it again, right as she plops down and starts eating. She snaps that there's no meat left, and they tell her it's mostly gone right on target, which is exactly what she was trying to prove. She needles Vim, grinning about how popular he is, and when he tries to play it cool, he blurts, "All right, cut it out." Vim insists he only did some support while everyone else is out here blowing everyone away, and she asks, "Doesn't that hit home and calm him down?" A teammate rips into Vim for missing it. Camilla's been staring at him, then throws a tired sigh like, he's dense again, isn't he? Between mouthfuls of food, she swears the guildmaster is totally, painfully smitten with him. Vim blurts out, "Where's Camilla?" and learns she's probably stuck back in the office, swamped in the wreckage left behind by that dive. Seizing his moment to finally talk to her, Vim fires off a quick thank you to Hidamari and dashes out to hunt down the office. In her office, Camilla sits alone at her desk, slamming the keys of an old typewriter like she can't stop the story from unfolding. She slows just long enough to check her progress, her mind racing as she wonders if she can actually slam all that paperwork out today. She leans back and relives the day, smiling because the labyrinth dive went perfectly and Vim crushed it. She realizes, deep in her bones, that his contribution just supercharged the team's power. It felt so natural, like her body had unlocked a hidden power like wings had just sprouted on her back. She's left breathless. She just pulled off a performance leagues beyond what she normally can, and for the first time, she feels totally dialed in, perfectly in form. A flush crawls across her cheeks as a shaky sigh bursts out, and she savors every last jolt of that intense, unforgettable feeling. She can't stop wondering if remembering that enhancement so vividly might help the team climb even higher, or if it's exactly what they need for training. With his help, she feels like she's finally about to smash right through the ceiling she's been stuck staring at. A sharp knock at the door slams her right out of her thoughts. Vim calls out from the hallway, and Camilla wastes no time. She swings the door open and ushers him inside. Vim bursts back in, instantly confused, and wonders why she's still strapped in her armor like she's missed something huge. Ignoring the awkward tension, Vim's nerves skyrocket as she shakily thrusts a stack of documents into your hands. He tells them, loud and clear, that this is his official guild report from the expedition. Camilla stares at the stack, brow furrowed, and demands to know what the report is really about. Vim figures that once they struck a gold vein and pulled in outsiders, he had to send in his own report. Camilla buys into his logic, thanks him right away, and suddenly sees just how useful his documentation really is. As she reads, it hits her mixing his report with hers smashes every problem she's been facing, but the sheer amount of work makes her jaw drop. Relief crashes through her the moment she realizes she can actually finish her work today. She remembers him saying he used to hustle with odd jobs for the Dragon's Wing Guild. Vim humbly admits he took care of everything except the big fights while also juggling the accounting duties. Camilla locks eyes with him, stunned speechless, trying to wrap her head around the fact that he pulled off everything. She flips through the documents, totally misreading them, and assumes he cooked them up as leverage to squeeze a better salary in negotiations. She decides he hauled that report home to prove his value and make sure he stays on Naklibo's good side. She studies him for a beat and realizes that his weakness was just a mask because he's been plotting this exact move from the start. Refusing to get outplayed, she steels herself mentally, accepting the challenge to pull him over to her side. Vim hesitates, completely baffled, and calls out her name again and again, desperate to pull her out of her trance. Camilla snaps straight to the point and offers him a salary of 500 milk. Vim blinks hard, completely lost, and blurts out a shocked, "Huh?" She shoots back on the spot, adding another 2,000 for him to join, but makes it crystal clear he can't back out of the gold deposits. Vim stayed completely lost and fired back, straight up asking what she was even talking about. Camilla reads his confusion as a sly move, like he's hiding his true hand while hunting for the absolute highest price. She clenches her teeth, because no way is she letting anyone else snatch him away, no matter how absurd he looks. She lays out a killer deal 700 on top, plus a special joining bonus of 3,000. She sweetens the whole deal with a locked-in salary of 600 milk every month, matching the top higher-ups, then adds performance bonuses on top. Eyes locked on him, she demands his final thoughts on the proposal. Camilla reads his silence as pure greed, pushing him like, "So you still need more?" While Vim sits there thinking the whole negotiation has to be a cruel joke. With a fierce determination to lock him in, she ups his wage to double what he made before and pushes him to reveal the exact number he earned at Dragon's Wing. Vim stammered as she tried to snatch back her own mistake because she wasn't even close to 200. Camilla misreads his hesitation as a tough negotiating tactic and snaps her offer upward to a jaw-dropping 2,000. Vim trembles and stammers, but finally he forces the words out. His monthly salary is 20 mercs. Camilla goes completely still, her composure shattering as she blurts, "What?" Because that price is insanely low. Vin drops his gaze in shame, murmuring again, "Yup, his monthly salary really is just 20 merc." Camilla's jaw drops. She glares and says that pay is way too low, less than a newbie general store worker would earn, and way less than what an adventurer should get for risking their life. She stares at his defeated face and the horror hits her fast. He's dead serious about the slave wages. Vim mutters under his breath that she doesn't need to push herself just to chase a high reward because he'd be happy with whatever she gives him. He starts to slip away with some quick excuse, but Camilla erupts, yelling at him to stop, wait, and hold on for just a moment. She slams another bid down, stunned that someone like him so brutally strong was really only worth 20 merc. As he walks out, she watches him go in silence, then mutters to herself, furious, how could they treat him like that, and why on earth did they fire him? Vim admits he has no clue why, and just like that, Camilla is left alone, drowning in pure confusion. Meanwhile, way down in the dungeon, the Dragon's Wing party gets hit with a brutal reality check because it turns out they're not the party they thought they were. They're clawing their way through the labyrinth's 35th floor, barely holding on as panic and exhaustion crash down on them. Monstrous shadows crowd in on their heels as they sprint away, panting breaths snapping through the dark corridor. A snarling horde of goblins charges after them, shrieking loud as they clamp down on the fleeing adventurers. The leader clenched his teeth, clinging to the promise that once Vim was gone, they'd finally kick back and live the good life as adventurers. He figured once that new fighter joined the fray, their formation would click into place and their wounds would finally start healing fast. Delusional, he tells himself this pain is just how things go right before they're bumped up to A rank. Then he's convinced he'll sail straight into the deep labyrinth. Reality shatters as he yells at Nicola to heal them right now. Then he realizes the healing output is dangerously low. He whips his panic straight at Melis, blurting out, "Did her Doppelini spell finish yet?" Terror snaps through his face as he realizes the chanting still isn't done, and he blurts, "Why is this mage still?" Melis finally snaps out a flame veil, blazing a burning barrier between herself and the monsters. The leader snaps an order, everyone follow him right now and get out because the fire is keeping the enemy busy. The battered party stumbles up the dungeon stairs, drained to the bone, their morale shattered beyond repair. The leader snaps at Nicole again, barking that demand, why hasn't she finished sealing up their wounds yet? Nicola mumbles an apology, clutches her staff like it might help, and admits she's not feeling well at all. The leader glares at her as she rushes out an apology for being on edge, and his frustration keeps piling higher and higher. He forces a fake smile, thanks her, and pushes everyone to take a breath and calm down just for a moment. He scrambles to convince himself and the whole team that if Nicola comes back, they can slam the brakes on this disaster and rise again. Still reeling and desperate, he pushes back hard, insisting they can save this, even with their mess of a condition. He decides they've got to nail down where they are right now to plot an escape from the goblins, and he yanks everyone into asking for a landmark he can use to point the way. He whips his head toward Melis for answers, only to meet her staring back blank, terrified eyes that say she's seen something terrible. Melis Dammers quirked his head, asking what kind of landmark he meant, looking totally lost and completely useless. He panics and blurts to the others, "Do any of you know where we are?" But Sophia shoots him down with a quick apology. She has no clue. He whips around to the tank, praying it'll save him, but all it gives back is dead silence. Then it hits them without their old support. They're totally lost, wandering with no direction at all. They slam to a stop and stare ahead, dumbfounded at a wall with zero give. The party freezes in a dead-end alley as the goblin horde screeching closes in from right behind them. The leader's face contorts with pure horror as the realization hits somehow they've marched straight into a death trap. He realizes too late that they dragged their enemies right along to a place they were never meant to reach. A calm, vine-choked house sits in the sunny glow, quietly hosting the dragon's wing party as if nothing could disturb the peace. Inside, a member brings over water for his bedridden comrade, but she shuts it down fast, then snaps that, since he's asking, she'd rather be able to eat instead. Sophia hovers by Nicola's bedside, her voice full of worry as she asks if he's really feeling okay. Nicola forces a fragile smile, tells her friend she's okay, and slips out a soft, grateful thanks. The door slams open, making Melis jump in shock as she chokes out a gasp, then Kronos strides into the room. Clutching a small plate, his face set in stone as he heads straight for the bed. He tells Nicola that Sophia peeled some apples for her, then hands over the fruit like a sweet little sign of care. He carefully hands her a slice, and for a brief moment, right in the middle of the party's chaos, tenderness breaks through. Kronos steps in and tells them to slow down, take a real breather, and do whatever it takes to keep everyone's spirits soaring. He admits to himself that the floor boss's wounds still haven't healed, and he's shocked, because he never thought he'd get this crushed on the 35th floor. Melis fights tooth and nail for him, swearing Kronos isn't the villain, and then she takes the hit for the mistake, claiming it was her judgment that went wrong. The group gets hit hard by the feeling tears spring to their eyes as they open up and share a raw, emotional moment together. They slam into a tight group hug, squeezing the fear out, and swear together they're not done ever. They huddle up, ready to grind again, swearing that this brutal setback isn't who they are. Later in the living room, the air turns suffocatingly tense as the story drags them back through their total disaster of a dive into the labyrinth. A flashback rips the truth open. Turns out their whole plan was a crude brute force mess, cursed with awful coordination and sloppy map work. Chaos crashes over their memories as the battle swallows them whole, and they're forced to toss a flashbang just to survive. They shriek for Sophia to save them, scrambling like mad to bolt from the dungeon before it's too late. Back in the present, they cling to one brutal comfort, at least they weren't wiped out, and somehow they crawled back alive. Doubt slinks in the moment they realize it's way too hard to believe this is the same Baran group that just wiped out a floor boss. That elf girl just locks eyes with the table, and you can watch her suspicion snowball like she knows something's horribly wrong with the whole situation. She scans the chaos on her desk paper stacked like a disaster, then snaps back to Kronos' demand to sort out the mess the useless predecessor left behind. She remembers him snapping that the guy in charge back then was hopeless and then telling her to clean up the mess he left behind. She agrees to shoulder the load, but the moment she scans the documents, her smile drops and everything in her face shifts. She's completely stunned to find super detailed party house repair plans, thorough reports on everything, and receipts lined up so perfectly they feel like they were planned down to the last detail. She digs up the supply delivery plans, and the paperwork is so painfully detailed it might as well be a whole thesis. She uncovers a map of every known level, packed with monster descriptions, and that useless claim instantly crumbles like a lie. Horror crashes into her as she realizes the predecessor must have been doing all that massive work completely by herself. She starts doubting the whole story that the predecessor truly wasn't helpful, and her thoughts flash straight to Vim. Rage churns in her chest the moment the truth clicks, and now she can't stop wondering what Kronos, the so-called leader, has really been up to this whole time. A flashback rips the curtain off Vim's training. Chronos corners him and hammers him with the real sort. Brutal and all too real. Chrono lands a brutal strike and Vim gets blasted backward with a sharp, pained cry. This training feels less like practice and more like straight-up abuse. Chrono looms over the beaten boy, staring down with ruthless cold, while Vim curls on the floor in agony, barely holding on. He sneers that Vim can't even cut it as a real sparring partner, and the boy just meekly nods, swallowing the challenge. A healer snaps and coldly hurls a healing staff at Vim, saying she's not doing it for him, she's just patching him up. She snaps, "Why can't you finally be useful to Chronos?" and hammers him with verbal cruelty on top of his agony. Vim blurts out a desperate apology, his spirit shattered as he cringes in front of them. She crosses her arms, snaps at him to get up the moment he feels even slightly better, and doesn't give a single ounce of empathy. Chronos towers over him, hammering his mind with the same cruel words no one else would hire him, and he's just replaceable. He yells that Vim better be useful or he'll be fired, locking in the same vicious cycle of abuse that marked every second Vim spent with him. The nightmare of his dismissal hits him all over again, Chronos' screaming voice rattling inside his head, shouting for him to get out and then declaring him fired. He snaps awake, and as the dark haze of the memory burns off, the real world of his new surroundings crashes in. Up on the rooftop, High-School Mercenary peers through her telescope and, with a sharp pang of pity, watches him keep getting crushed by nightmares about Dragon's Wing. Vim just slid into the guest house as a provisional member stuck under a brutal rule that won't let adventurers officially join a brand new party for 3 whole months. High-School Mercenary watches him with obsessive glee, practically buzzing that his closeness lets her track his every move even more easily. She looks back on all the reckless stunts she pulled, like slipping into the Dragon's Wing base, and finally exhales, because she won't have to gamble with her life like that again. Now she can track him without fear, firing off her full magical toolkit signal crest flashing and eavesdropping, stones listening in. In the moonlight, she can't stop giggling. She's fully savoring the fact that she can track his every move. She relentlessly updates volume 105 of her VMS diary, spelling out his life with spine-chilling detail. Vim's morning starts way before the sun even thinks about rising. He kicks off his day with a sprint across the guild grounds, shaking out his body and getting it ready for whatever's coming next. Breakfast at the Nac Level restaurant hits different steaming boiled sausages, crispy, flaky potatoes, and bacon so perfectly seasoned it practically melts in your mouth. He spends his afternoon in calm bliss, pouring all his energy into magic practice, chasing his hobbies, and digging deep into the mysteries of monster biology. After getting buried under non-stop duties at Dragon's Wing, he finally breaks free and lands with real time to live for himself. High-School Mercenary tiptoes into his room to catch him napping, then gushes over his adorable sleeping face while scribbling notes. She plugs in his latest biodata and spots the numbers 129, 260 pounds, and a razor precise 021 from yesterday. Later, she engineers a hallway accident, slips up to him with that famous surprise, and lets him in on the twist that it's just a coincidence. She skips off, grinning after their quick moment, and can't stop thinking how many years has it been since she got to be this close to him. Her instincts spike the moment she spots Vim slipping out of his usual routine and doing something totally out of place. She notices he's slipped into the courtyard, and her mind spirals. Did someone call him there? Suspicious as hell, she snaps her eavesdropping stone to life and leans in to catch every word of what's going down. Her face turns ghost pale the moment the stone clicks on, spilling out a woman's voice apologizing for the early hour. In the courtyard, Vim squares off against Camilla on a massive training grid. Camilla straps into her armor, grips a wooden sword, and announces, "All right, session starts now." High-School Mercenary leans over the roof edge, heart thumping with relief, only to realize it's Camilla training, not some romantic meetup. Camilla slams Enchanted into place, and a glowing magical aura wraps around her as she kicks off the exercise. High-School Mercenary peers through her telescope, and her eyes widen. Camilla is trying to train with Vim's very specific enchantment style. They sprint through the motions at full speed so the body soaks it up. Then they slap on a weaker version of the enchantment until the high-speed movement feels natural, and only then do they unleash the full power to seal that muscle memory in place. Mary hides her excitement and watches intently, realizing this is the kind of training that nudges your body past its limits step by step. Camilla whips her sword through the air at blinding speed, her eyes locked in, executing the drill like a lightning strike. With one savage strike, she rips a shockwave through the air, carving it up with terrifying power. High-School Mercenary trembles with nerves as she realizes Camilla naturally caught up to the movement in just 1 hour. Then she blurts, "You're a monster." Vim stares at the screen, torn should he finally speak up and correct her form. He calls her out for swinging her arm way too wild, then tells her to tweak the friction in her joints to nail that perfect, smooth motion. He suggests a reverse enhancement, less power, tighter control to restrict movement instead of supercharging it, and they both nod, agreeing to try it out. Camilla swings in with the new adjustment, and her blade snaps forward with surgical precision and crushing force. Vim stands there as the dust finally settles, then turns to his guildmaster and demands to know what she thinks about the new modification. Overwhelmed by emotion and pure victory, Camilla snaps Vim into a tight, bone-crushing hug. Through her telescope, Hyde Mary spots the embrace and erupts into a scream of silent horror at the sheer intimacy. Camilla erupts in wild cheers for Vim, clapping her hands and yelling, "Excellent, brilliant," with pure delight, while Hyde Mary watches from a distance. Hyde Mary panics and begs herself to breathe, but her jealousy flames up the second she snaps. "What do you think you're doing with my Vim, Camilla?" She tries to swear the hug is just emotional, but the second it hits, she flips out screaming in fierce denial like her heart just betrayed her. Camilla crushes Vim in a tight hug with a warm grin, and Hyde Mary can only slump there in defeat, giving that moment a brutal -10. Camilla wastes zero time. She jumps on the opening and promises to pay Vim so he'll put Abel through morning exercises every single day. Mark jumps into the recruitment push in the afternoon, then pulls the whole group into a drink so he stays locked in with the guild members. Hyde Mary watches from her window, clocking Camilla's master plan. She's slowly boxing Vim in with personal ties, sealing him in before he can even officially step in. As night creeps over the city, the clock tower looms high, cutting straight into the darkening sky. Hyde Mary sits alone at her desk, scribbling notes as she watches Vim go out for drinks with the guys, leaving her stuck behind. She crosses her arms, huffs like she's got a point, and insists she's got enough common sense to respect Vim's privacy, so she's definitely not going to tail him 24/7. The second she lets her imagination run wild, it snitches on her. She's already picturing all those guys and the dangerous temptations lurking in the local nightlife. In the tavern, Vice Commander Hans hoists a frothy mug high and grins as he cheers Vim into the party with a loud, welcoming toast. The tavern's packed and buzzing waitresses strut around in daring outfits, and the guys just grin ear to ear, soaking up every second of the wild, lively vibe. Mary peeks at them from the wall nearby, clenching her teeth as fury surges. She just realized it's that kind of shop. She strains to catch a single word through her eavesdropping stone, battling the crowd's roar, then steam practically erupts in her as she spots Vim flashing glances at the girls. Back at the table, Hans casually drops that he heard Vim is from the very same city as Hyde Mary. Vim confirms the link and admits he's from Ryer Eifelde, then blows your mind with how insanely far that is from here. One of the guys blurts out that Vim's been craving this kind of adventure life for ages. Vim nods, saying he used to binge stories of heroes as a kid and he dreamed for years about standing exactly where he stands today. Hans remembers Monica saying Vim had one goal above all. He specifically wanted to become a mage. He clocks it instantly. Vim's clearly got a soft spot for the fairy tale magician, not the usual epic saga hero. Vim blurts out a huge yes, racking his brain for that story where the guy turns into a princess. He snaps his fingers the moment it clicks in his head, and he's like, "Yep, Cinderella all along." The whole guild gawks in shock as hushed whispers fly around because that awkward, socially clueless boy is actually chatting like a regular guy. The moment the drinks hit, the whole table explodes into laughter, every shared story pulling the group even closer. Hyde Mary catches the heartwarming moment from the window, breaks into a gentle smile, and whispers at him to go on, have his fun. She softly warns him not to drink too much or sleep through the morning, and her fury melts into this warm, quiet affection. Later, Vim storms out of the tavern, then a gang of men waiting in a stone archway suddenly calls him over. They steer him straight into a singles area, brushing off his total confusion about where they're taking him. Vim blurts out that Mark is married, but the big guy just shrugs it off with a lazy wave, like it's nothing. One of the men hesitates, like he's trying to stop them before they drag Vim into this conversation. They corner him and demand answers about Hyde Mary. Are they lovers, or is there something darker brewing between them? Vim panics instantly, flailing his hands like crazy as he blurts that they're 100, just friends, nothing more. Hyde Mary lurks in the shadows, and the second she hears his furious denial, her heart drops like a stone. Vim tells everyone the truth. Hyde Mary isn't being nice for no reason. She's only kind to him because she feels responsible for keeping him safe. The men stare right past Vim, terror ripping through them as every last bit of color drains from their faces. They freeze like statues, staring hard at the terrifying figure that looms up behind the clueless boy. Hyde, Mary flashes a fake smile and pops up in front of them like she owns the place, greeting them with a shaky stiff, "Hey, what a coincidence." Vim presses her for answers, and she stammers out a pathetic excuse about a nearby girl's night out. She whips around and orders Vim to send her flying, and the terrified men grin while they shove him at her anything to save themselves. As they walk, Hidamari's mind replays a tense talk about one thing: she has to figure out how to deal with Vim joining the guild. She nods at the advice, and in that moment, she can't lie to herself anymore. So much has happened in just one day. Vim walks right beside her, admitting he's never felt anything this warm since the days he was stuck in Dragon's Wing. He flushes bright red and tells her it finally felt like he'd stepped into a real circle of friends for the first time ever. High Mary gives him a soft, knowing smile, praises him for how great he was tonight, and lets his happiness hit like a win. Vim stares in disbelief at the praise, then blurts out, "What are you talking about?" as they stroll down the quiet street. Hyde Mary keeps her feelings locked up, convinced she's finally turned into the good influence he's needed all along. Inside Naklibel's lavish office, an investigator stands frozen in front of the guildmaster, and the second he's there, everyone's attention snaps to him. The man drops his name Dominic and claims he's a dead serious agent from the Adventurers Guild Investigation Unit. Camilla glares at him from behind her desk, suspicious as hell, and demands to know right now why he's showing up in her sanctuary. Dominic finally spills it. He needs her help, because his unit has been running a secret investigation. Camilla leans in with narrowed eyes and pushes him to spell out exactly what happened. Dominic blurts out the name Wim Strauss, claiming he's a former member of the legendary Dragon's Wing Party. Camilla takes in the name without a tremor, gives a sharp little nod, and clocks the information in one curt phrase. She snaps into a knowing grin and lets out a little chuckle, telling the investigator, "Don't be silly." Dominic insists her shock makes perfect sense, but he won't budge on what he believes about the boy. Camilla insists it makes zero logical sense that Wim could have taken down a floor master all by himself on the 97th floor. Dominic shoots back that the only proof they found on the boss was a wound from Vim's machete shattering Chrono's claim in one hit. He insists the VIMS report has no missing pieces, but they still can't crack open a full investigation. Camilla snaps to it. They're not just wandering, they're hunting the labyrinth's secrets, and she fires back that in the end, only physical proof really matters. Dominic shrugs and admits he can't shut down the rumors, but then he drops the bombshell. Someone's deliberately dragging out Dragon's Wing's promotion so it won't reach A rank. He scoffs at the idea that 3 guys who couldn't even scratch the boss are being crowned heroes in Fielbron. He admits he's the only one pushing the idea of a solo defeat, then admits it sounds totally unbelievable, even to him. Camilla scans the reports and admits they're flawless, then one tiny detail throws her off and won't let her go. She points out that Wim quietly scrubbed his own achievements from the record so he wouldn't stick out. She clocks his humble vibe and thinks it's totally believable that he's been downplaying his real strength. Seeing how hard the investigator fought for the truth, she finally nods and agrees to team up, letting them assess her new member. She decides she can't just rely on rumors she's going to size up Vim's combat skill herself, because she has to confirm what he's truly made of. Deep in the ruins, Wim slams the brakes on the party, then spots a pitfall trap 50 meters to the left like he's reading the ground itself. Camilla instantly blasts his warning into the air, snapping the whole group to shift course. No hesitation, no debate. Wim slips along in silence, replaying the few months he's shared with Naklibel, and wondering right in the middle of his own thoughts whether he's really getting through. He flashes a quick mental picture and explains it plain. His job sits between the front line and the back line, keeping everyone backed up and ready to move. He clocks that the teleportation array isn't hidden anymore, and he can't help but stare because the guild is actually trusting and valuing someone like him. A wave of gratitude hits him hard when it finally clicks people see him, and he's actually useful. Camilla suddenly blurts his name, snapping him out of his own head mid-thought. Wim whips her gaze to him, nerves crackling, and demands straight to his face that he prove his fighting skills right now. She demands a one-on-one spar right now, and Wim tries to dodge the showdown by bragging that he's already fought plenty of battles. He stammers that he normally goes after small fry, then admits miserably that he's too weak to pull off a real demonstration. Camilla locks eyes with him and won't let up. She demands to know what he can do, because their next labyrinth dive is going to be absolutely massive. Wim finally gives in, realizing that if he shows he can fight on his own, he'll ease her fears about him getting hurt. He snaps to a threat in an instant, spotting a massive clay doll golem lurking 140 away. He pushes for a group fight, straight up asking Hyde Marie and the others to step in and help. Camilla flat out ignores his plea for backup, then cheers him on like nothing's wrong, leaving him to swallow his pride and fight the whole battle alone. The tension thickens fast as a towering enemy barrels closer, and the reluctant adventurer can't back away. A giant clay doll golem looms over Wim, its stony body throwing a brutal, monster-sized shadow across him. Hyde Mary shoves a screaming Wim forward and clamps him in the monster's path with pure force. Wim starts panicking and screaming that he's about to die while his teammate, ice cold, ruthlessly tells him to quit worrying and just go for it. Hyde Mary brushes off Wim's terror with a casual wave, then clamps down on his knife like a promise, "You're not dying, not today." Wim rips his fear from the air, thrusts his blade forward with a fierce stare, and braces to take on the massive threat by himself. The rest of the Naklibel party just backs off and watches in awe as the towering clay doll golem looms over the little enchanter. Hans tells Camilla he's not sure because a clay doll is way too dangerous to take on alone, even if he's got his own special edge. He makes it crystal clear, no matter how tough a seasoned B rank warrior is, they'd still struggle to survive that monster solo. Hans tells them why Vim's power is untouchable. He stacks tiny weak enhancements on every single muscle and bone, one by one. He breaks down how stacking tiny boosts on specific parts like the radius bone somehow snowballs into raw power no other grantor can even touch. He admits it might work in theory, but privately, he can't help wondering if Camilla really believes Vim can actually beat that construct. As Vim lines up his spell, Hans smirks to himself because it's obvious their guildmaster is way too into that boy. Adventurers don't just choose a life, they earn it through a ritual that hits like a hammer, reshaping their bodies the moment they get a profession. While most adventurers get bodies 10 times stronger than ordinary humans, the grantor profession plays by a totally different rulebook. Vim looks worn out as the narration drops the truth. Grantor's only a bit tougher than a normal human, and their art is brutally hard to wield. Boosting yourself with enhancements is usually a waste of time most of the time. It still won't make the grantor stronger than the other combat professions. The real win is brutal, no body change at all, so they're battle ready the second they're activated, which is exactly why grantors are so rare. The clay doll slams its massive stone arm down with bone-crushing force, and Vim has to throw himself into frantic dodges to survive. Vim taps instant enhancements, Weimar snaps into action, and in the blink of an eye, he gets a brutal double surge in strength. The golem's fist slams into the ground, shattering everything, but Vim already launches into the air, vaulting clear just in time. Self-application cuts out the delay of setting up approval routes and sending orders to a teammate. Vim tweaks his enhancements on the fly, stacking boosts twice on body parts that can normally handle only one layer of magic. He clenched his teeth, knowing this fight could only be a quick burst because his low magic power meant the power wouldn't hold for long. A shockwave tears through the air as he rockets forward, pure explosive speed. Vim scrambles up the golem, bracing for that brutal recoil pain he always gets when he hammers strong magic into a body that can't take it. He freezes mid-swing, eyes bulging, because the recoil pain never hits this time. With renewed courage, he slams the instant enhancement Dreamar for a triple surge. Then he can't help wondering, did he actually get stronger, or is the pain just sprinting to hit later? He hurls a devastating blow and shatters the golem's rocky shell with brutal force. His blade tears clean through the stone defense as he hammers the massive construct with non-stop strikes. Vim's boosted strength slams into the golem crack, shattering its arm and blasting stone debris everywhere. While rocks rain down, Vim spots the magical core and fixes his eyes on it with laser-sharp focus. He drives the blow straight into the core, and the giant clay doll shudders, then crumples and collapses as its structure gives out. The giant body collapses in an instant, crumbling into harmless rocks defeated in mere seconds. Dust swirls through the ruins as that massive threat gets smashed into rubble by the lone enchanter. Hans freezes in disbelief, then blurts to Camilla that he only caught it for a split second because the whole thing happened in an instant. The other guild members are just as stunned, blurting out, "Wait, was it already over?" because they only looked away for a second. Hans studies Vim's feet in his head, and the moment he judges the raw speed, he realizes Vim's already sitting among the fastest in Fielbron. Vim blurts out an apology for dragging things out, and Hans panics, denying it nonstop as sweat pours down his face. Hans heaps praise on him like he's pure magic, so unbelievably good. It blows minds, but Vim twists that shock into something else and calls it sarcasm. The rest of the party storms in, and they stare eyes wide with awe, crashing into pure confusion over what they just witnessed. Camilla locks eyes with him and drills him with that intense stare, then blurts, "Who are you?" right as Hyde Marie strolls in and waves with a laid-back hello. Hyde Mary tries to prove they grew up in the same hometown, but Camilla shuts it down fast. She's not asking about his past at all. The guildmaster locks eyes with her new recruit and, right there on the spot, fully admits it. This kid standing in front of her is ridiculously strong. Vin sprints toward the group with a grin blazing on his face, shouting for everyone to hide Mary as he crashes back into his party. He grins and blurts that he went a bit reckless today, and somehow the outcome feels insanely good. And yeah, he admits it, those adrenaline highs are gone, and his whole body suddenly goes wobbly and weak. Camilla watches with a smirk, like she's seeing him swing into battle as if he's a rookie adventurer hunting his first monster, not some battle-hardened vanguard. She clocks his crushing low self-esteem and realizes it won't budge even with all his obvious wins while his true combat skills still stay hidden. Camilla keeps staring at his real smile, and it hits her he hasn't been purposely hiding his power just to drown it in guilt. She's left totally baffled by his moves, because she can't make sense of why his confidence swings so wildly from one moment to the next. Hyde Mary lays a steadying hand on Vim's shoulder and tells him to calm down. He's way too amped up. Vim blurts out, panicking, "Did I say anything weird?" as his excitement races right off the charts. Shaken by his own outburst, he slams a hand over his face and rides the wave of embarrassment, furious at how badly he lost his composure. He taunted him with a smug grin, claiming that he taking down that clay doll all by himself was pure genius. Vim rubs his arms, cheeks burning, and admits he only dared to be reckless because they were right there to back him up. He tries to explain what it cost him physically, admitting his body usually pays the price after nights like this. Hyde Mary barges in on his self-diagnosis and snaps that there's zero sign he's in any real pain at all. Vim freezes in pure confusion because a triple boost should have left him wiped out and magic dead, so why does he still feel fine? He gapes at his own hand, stunned beyond words somehow. After that brutal fight, his magic power is still there. He can't stop wondering if he's truly getting stronger, but right then, the shield squad steps in, ready to lift him up. The squad rockets him into the sky with loud heave-ho shouts, and he tumbles up there, flailing like he's terrified he'll never land. Hyde Mary beams at the celebration, feeling it click at last. The world is finally starting to see just how great Vim really is. Sunlight spills over the rustic wooden roof of the knacked Libel party house, beating down on shingles worn smooth by years of weather. Inside the armory, Monica stands alone by the window, staring down into the courtyard as swords and shields loom all around her. Simon barged into the room, slid up to her, and leaned in, asking, with sharp curiosity, what she was watching so intently. Monica beams and points down to the courtyard, practically pulling him forward to see the wild scene that's unfolding below. In the training grounds, Camilla and Abel tear into each other with brutal weapon clashes, while Vim hangs back and watches every second like it matters. Simon tells her to stop just being amazed and come join them, because lately they've been training like this every single morning. Monica stalls by the window, biting her nerves as she frets that showing up could totally ruin their intense moment. Simon just laughs it off, firing back that she's loud as it is, like her noise is already loud enough to drown out any concern. The three figures huddle in the courtyard, grins still clinging to their faces while the exhaustion of the bout weighs heavy on their shoulders. The sparring match ends, and as the dust swirls around the fighters in the open training yard, everything finally goes quiet. Camilla drops her weapon and snaps that they're calling the session off for today. Abel crumples to one knee, drenched in sweat and gasping for air, yet he refuses to quit. He insists he can still push through. Camilla calls him out and reminds him that today is a real rest day because tomorrow he's about to dive into the massive exploration of the 98th floor. She snaps her focus to Vim and grills him. So what did that last enhancement tweak feel like? Abel's grin spreads like wildfire as he yells that it's absolutely wonderful pure awesomeness. Camilla and Abel gush praises at Vim nonstop, shocked to the bone that someone could match their needs so perfectly. Vim blushes hard as they heap praise on him, insisting over and over that he's the one learning from both of them. Camilla throws him a huge thank you, grateful he's stayed with them this far even if he's only a temporary member. She tightens her fist so hard her knuckles ache, and admits, yeah, she can't stop the buzz in her chest for the challenge that's coming. Her cheeks flush with pure anticipation as she wonders what chaos, what miracles will erupt if she gives it everything right now, in her brand new, improved form. Vim stands there in silence, absolutely basking in gratitude because they always shower him with compliments and somehow lift his whole mood. He tells them, for tomorrow to go right, we're taking a real break today, both of us. He slowly lifts a finger, tossing out an idea to help them unwind and get back on their feet. He leans in and asks, want to grab a meal together right now? Like that's the perfect way to shake off the stress and reset. He brings up this insanely delicious steak spot, and both warriors instantly light up with excited, full-on smiles. Vim stammers, glancing one last time, terrified he's about to bother his friend with his invitation. He snaps into panic and freezes because it hits him hard. He's got a study session with the reconnaissance team right this second. Camilla's smile drops to zero as she snaps. Forget everything else, prioritize the recon meeting. Tomorrow is too damn important. Vim blurts out a heartfelt apology, realizing he has to awkwardly yank back the invite he just gave. Abel's face falls, Camilla forces a shaky smile, and Vim realizes he just turned them down so hard it actually worked. Abel whips the mood back on track and asks, can they push through morning training for a little longer? He shoots Camilla a heartfelt thanks, then darts for the stairs, riding out the training session on pure momentum. Camilla lets out a shaky sigh. She knows she went too hard, so today she's grabbing a stronger recovery potion to bounce back. In the library, Vim drills hard with the recon team, while Camilla stares from outside the window, locked in and watching every move. The team huddles up to talk scouting, and they nail the difference. Vim's pinpoint accuracy comes from squeezing tiny bursts of magic, while Simon swings his wide area approach. Ever since Vim showed up, they're all convinced the whole crew's been getting better, especially when they talk about how his trap scouting skills keep saving them. They're blown away by the self-discipline it takes to build skills like that, and just by talking to him, they feel their own motivation ignite. Camilla watches the chaos unfold and just knows the crew of Nakliebel can't help but get fired up to level up. A cold stare snaps onto her face as she realizes, yeah, the Vim kid is seriously creepy. She strides down the corridor, her mind racing because all that perfect praise he gets, it has to hide something. Two guild members crouch in a hidden corner, trading the freshest gossip in frantic whispers while scanning the room like they expect eavesdroppers to jump out any second. The woman blurts out an apology for her loose mouth, then admits she couldn't help spilling the rumor because she knows just how bad it is when someone else hears it. Even with Hyde Mary's recommendation in hand, she insists it's still brutal to accept someone like Vim as a grantor, especially when the rest of them have already bled so much effort to get there. She lays out Vim's spot next to the members who haven't dived yet, and you can feel the resentment bubbling over his sudden jump into the group. The talk turns dark fast. Could his very presence unleash a ripple of guilt that spirals out of control? The man points out that Noct level is pure survival of the fiercest elite nobles and academy students slashed through competition, clawing for one thing, the chance to be chosen. Vim's just studying nearby, while the gossips circle and swear that anyone fired from another party must never be welcome without a full, proper evaluation. They're betting that after tomorrow's dive, everyone will finally see his skills up close and their opinions will flip for real. The moment Camilla steps in, their whispering collapses instantly. She looms over them, and her sheer presence forces silence and instant respect. A guild member rushes to Camilla and tells her the Adventurers Guild has sent someone over. She clenches her resolve and orders them brought straight in. Those heavy doors slam open, and the investigator starts flipping through his documents while the tension in the room spikes, like he's about to drop the truth any second. Dominic grabs the report and reads it out loud, hammering home the wild claim that Vim wiped out a mud golem all by himself. He demands Camilla's verification, and she shoots back immediately that, yep, what he pulled off was truly an incredible feat. Dominic pushes harder, demanding to know if, according to her read, Vim could be taken down the 97th floor master all by herself. Camilla laces her fingers together and shuts the door on that possibility. No wiggle room, not a single inch. She shuts that down fast, saying it's not happening. No way he soloed the boss. She even admits his speed is top-notch in Fieldbraun. And yeah, he's one of a kind as a grantor, but once that's said, she draws the line. Dominic leans in hard as she confirms that Vim's fighting power is basically neck and neck with their top candidate core members. She admits things could go sideways in a heartbeat if the boy is still sitting on more of his real power. Dominic can't stop wondering if Vim's hiding something, while Camilla insists that his one-of-a-kind abilities are about to be put to the test on the very next exploration. The investigator rises to go, snapping that she must race back to the guild the moment she figures out what that boy is hiding. He slaps a chilling catch onto his demand. No report gets sent unless Vim somehow survives that dive. The story cuts to a cozy tavern where Hyde Mary dives into her food like she hasn't eaten in days. And the whole mood feels nothing like that stuffy office. Between bites, she can't stop gushing about Vim's adorable sleeping face, and with a wave of relief, she realizes his nightmares have finally quit. A strained smile clings to the waitress's face as Hyde Mary drops the bombshell. Vim's even been talking in his sleep. The waitress squints like she's stuck in a nightmare, completely at a loss as the customer's obsessive rambling won't stop. Hyde Mary clocks the waitress's dead mood, then snaps at the cowwoman. What's got you so bothered? The tavern owner steps in and tells the waitress she doesn't have to push herself to serve them right this second. With a grim voice, he tells you this last week, a normal tavern party marched into the 98th floor and they vanished like they never existed. Hyde Marie freezes mid-bite, and realization hits her face as the brutal news finally sinks in. The story says these tiny teams charge straight into the front lines of exploration. No fear, all desperation as they scramble for achievements. Most of these would-be heroes don't make it 1 minute they're there. The next, they're either corpses or totally gone, swallowed up by the harsh, unmapped wilderness. The owner lets out a heavy sigh. Yeah, it's heartbreaking, but every adventurer stares death in the face every single day, so you'd better be ready for that outcome. Hyde Marie slams both palms on the table, wrecking the vibe in an instant, and roars that she's going to buy the waitress a drink to lift her spirits. The waitress gasps at the offer, staring wide-eyed because it's so rare to see that tight-fisted mage suddenly hand out generosity. Hyde Mary grandly declares this drink is a sweet preview from a future executive candidate, then orders her, just take it. The tension snaps into joy the second the waitress slams down a huge tankard of beer, then cheers back with her patron like they've just won something. Mary lets out a sharp scream when she sees just how huge the glass is, and the moment she clocks it, she realizes she's been outplayed. She starts crunching the numbers, grumbling under her breath that as long as the price matches a normal drink, she can live with it. Chaos explodes when Hyde Mary snaps and accuses the waitress of ripping her off, and while the cow demon and the little mage get mocked, the whole crowd erupts in laughter. Hyde Mary bursts into hearty laughter with waitress Greta, practically confessing that she hasn't laughed this hard in ages. She snaps back furiously, blasting a loud denial that she's a stalker, insisting her name is Hyde Mary while Greta needles her nonstop with sarcastic nicknames. The whole vibe flips to panic as Sirius sharpens his focus. Greta just confirmed Hyde Mary is set to dive straight into the deadly 98th layer tomorrow. Greta begs her to come back safe with Vim, and Mary Huff lets out a confident huff like survival is some kind of sure thing. As she strides away, the story hits hard. One laugh today, and by tomorrow, that person might be gone forever. Deep in the dungeon, the whole party shrieks in panic because they just dove way too deep, and now they desperately scramble to retreat. A nightmarish monster crashes their ambush and tears straight through their ranks, and as everyone's screaming, they call out the names of the comrades who are dropping dead. In the choking dark, the dungeon floor turns slick with blood as the adventurers get picked off one by one, brutally. The lone survivor scrambles through the stone corridors like she's being hunted, her breaths tearing out in ragged gasps of straight-up terror. She huddles in a dark corner, shaking so hard she can barely breathe, desperate to disappear from the nightmare stalking her. Behind the unsuspecting girl, a grotesque shadow packed with countless eyes surges up its eerie chirps, locking her in icy fear. The monster drops in for the final kill, snuffing out the last flicker of hope from the doomed party. The massive clock tower looms against the blazing sky, kicking off a huge day the whole city won't forget. A massive procession of naked Labille members stomps through the cobblestone streets, their banners snapping high above the perfectly disciplined ranks. Villagers spill out and cram the streets, hanging from every window as they roar for their heroes, Hans and Camilla, begging them to give it everything they've got. Vimwalk shoves into the towering armored crowd, trying to disappear as the massive figures loom over him, and the anxiety in him won't let go. The whole city explodes in festival-level energy as everyone crowds the streets to celebrate the guild launching its massive investigation. Vim flicks a nervous glance at the spectators, his mind screaming, are they watching this spectacle too? He jerks himself to a halt, guilt stabbing his chest as he realizes he's still calling his old Dragon's Wing party members everyone. He frets nonstop, wondering if their wounds finally healed because not a single word has come his way about them in ages. Shaking his head, he slams the truth into his own mind for now. He's officially part of Nacht Libel. He shuts the door on any useless thoughts from the past and fixes his eyes on the crowd roaring around him like the cheers are dragging him forward. Bystanders stare in disbelief at the massive operation, then realize the guild has flipped the switch on every single one of its 122 members. In the middle of the crowd, two guys trade whispered rumors saying a mysterious provisional member is about to crash into the elite ranks. With a face full of shock, the man blurts out the recruit's real identity, revealing him as the Grantor magician who Dragon's Wing just fired. Word on the street is he's become the hottest name among adventurers, and people swear he's ridiculously super capable. The man rubs his head raw, grinding through frustration, but the exact name of that rumored magician just won't come back to him. Inside the guild hall, Camilla rips into the assembled troops, firing up the frontline party and reminding them that they're the ones who have to charge straight into danger first. She slams the warning down. There's a brutal chance they'll run straight into the floor master, and the traps are merciless, hunting down and killing every fresh newcomer. Her voice cuts through the air, promising that once those deadly dangers are crushed, the ultimate prize is waiting, beating the labyrinth and claiming the supreme honor. A huge cathedral-like hall stretches wide, packed with armed adventurers standing shoulder to shoulder in total silence, all hanging on their leader's next command. Camilla boldly declares that this mission won't just test them, it'll gamble their lives on the unknown depths, unlike anything they've ever faced before. She barks the order for them to steel themselves. Every single member must drop their fears and toss their own wills aside. She screams at them to throw away their lives right then and there, anything to safeguard their honor, their treasure, and the comrades fighting shoulder to shoulder beside them. The whole guild thrusts their weapons up in one thunderous roar, chanting that fierce Nacht libel of Fielbron, pure, deafening resolve, shaking the air. Vim jumps into the chant with a late, awkward yell standing out like a sore thumb among the battle-hardened warriors. He starts pouring sweat the second he realizes he mistimed everything, and the shame hits hard as he feels how weak his energy is next to the others. Hyde Mary shoots him a sharp, knowing glance, clocking every ounce of his nerves as he scrambles to steady himself. They explain that the very first layer of the labyrinth sits under the guild, and they're moving forward on the safest route they can find. The 98th floor bursts open into a massive, wild nature cave towering rocky cliffs, strange plants everywhere, like the dungeon finally found its lungs. Vim tilts his head back, staring in pure awe at the insane height of the space, and it's so overwhelming he feels like he can't even find the ceiling. He mentally runs through his job in the front lines, boosting the team with enhancements, and stepping in to scout when things get hairy. Responsibility crushes him as the truth hits one delay from him could slam the entire operation's progress to a halt. Abel catches the panic on the boy's face and gently asks the pale-faced kid if he's freaking out about the mission. Vim swears he's fine, but the second it leaves his mouth, he heaves so Abel wastes no time calling him out like, "Yeah, you're definitely vomiting." Abel squeezes him with encouragement, reminding him he's undefeated in training, and Vim steadies his mind by silently chanting through his brutal, tangled code. Vim suddenly tells Abel to trust him too, and the swordsman freezes, totally caught off guard by that bold request. Abel's cheeks flare red as he blurts out, blazing with determination, "I'll protect Vim no matter what, even if it means they've got to take on the floor boss." Right after the outburst, regret crashes in. He buries his face in his hands and blurts out an apology for saying something so ridiculously cheesy. Abel's stomach drops as he panics about crossing the line, while Vim just stares completely dumbfounded by the sudden shift. He can't stop wondering, did their bond finally level up into real friendship, since they train together and chat casually every single day? Vim jolts himself out of that inner spiral by nervously calling his own name just to yank his attention back to the moment. Vim stammers through his own words, struggling to finally ask Abel out for a meal next time, while a total blush burns across his face from the sheer nerve of it. A strange, warm feeling spills out from the dungeon entrance, either that, or the wind is laughing as it howls through the stone. Vin jerks in fright when a bug crawls in front of him and admits with a shaky voice that every single time he steps into the labyrinth, he hallucinates weird sounds. Abel smiles at the meal and instantly flips the switch. He barks orders for the front team to lock into the bid-ent formation. The party strides right into the massive entrance of the 98th floor, and the moment their feet hit the ground, strange plants and jagged rocks surround them like something out of a nightmare. Vim snaps his holographic interface to life, sees the enemy straight away, and locks onto a tight bee hydra head. He studies the creature's readings and realizes this species can't live without a water source close by. As Vim stared at the damp walls and the bird-like creatures hanging around, he figured there's a strong chance water veins run underneath this place. Vim spits out razor-precise orders, telling Bettina to lock down the left while he smashes through the right and slips underground to scout ahead. He warns the map maker to watch their step, because the road they're heading down is slowly tilting downward more and more. The teammate snaps to the advice, nods at the slope, and the whole group keeps creeping forward with careful, cautious steps. Vim's fingers whipped across his holographic interface, tearing through the data with pure, practiced speed. He mumbles razor-sharp coordinates under his breath, his brain sprinting through grid calculations to lock in the map of the area. Abel stares, jaw dropped, as he realizes Vim isn't just doing his job, he's running hypotheses and checks way beyond anything assigned. Vim leans in hard over the glowing map, dragging his finger along the lines as he digs deeper into the structure data. He crunches the numbers and realizes that a map this exact could sell for multiple times more, because he knows exactly how valuable his work really is. Panic hits out of nowhere as he overthinks every move with his magic, spiraling into a brutal mental loop. This is bad. The pressure in his mind turns into a body-betraying nightmare. He crumples onto all fours and vomits violently across the dungeon floor. A teammate tells Vim to hydrate, but Vim waves it off like it's nothing, claiming things are going perfectly smooth because everyone's got his back. Just as his self-loathing spiral was swallowing him whole, a notification blared, telling him the leader was calling, yanking him right back to reality. Camilla nods and confirms that his read was right, because a giant hole is right ahead, exactly as he predicted. She sweeps a hand and barks, "Over here!" her crew racing to a better spot so they can map the strategy and read the whole situation. The crew crowds around a map, and they all agree on one thing: if that smell of water hits, it's pointing to a lake or a river running straight ahead inside the route. Camilla begs Vim to test the water quality, because if it's safe, they're ready to refill their supplies and push forward. Vim tests the water himself, and when he spots a butterfly that only survives in spotless conditions, he declares it safe with zero doubt. Camilla snatched the report with a satisfied grin, then declared the briefing officially over unless someone else had something to add. Vin fidgeted like crazy beside Abel, biting back a worry he was terrified to say out loud. Abel clocked the unease in his face and pressed him, straight up asking if something was still wrong. Camilla snaps at him to just blurt it out, while Vim clocks down in frantic stutters until he finally forces the words out, trembling the whole time. Vim spots a weird piece of land like the whole terrain glitches because the route suddenly flips from a downhill run to a gentle uphill climb. Camilla pauses, eyes narrowing as she weighs the threat. Was this jagged land real, or did someone set a trap to swallow them whole? Vim lays out the absolute worst case: if that uphill climb keeps going, the water could pour in and trap them. He paints a terrifying scene trapped in a maze, getting slammed by the boss, and somehow their rear is totally submerged. The soldiers whisper with pure unease, and that's when panic hits Vim. He blurts an apology for raising a mirror like, "What if something goes wrong?" He blurts out apologies, trembling at the thought he scared everyone, then retreats fast into his own little shell of insecurity. Camilla lets out a heavy sigh and asks, dead serious, how many times they're supposed to survive the same ugly exchange of self-doubt. She tells him, "Don't pull your punches," and straight up points out that his quiet, introspective side is exactly what's fueling his growth. She gives him a soft smile and tells him, without doubt, that he's free to live his life the way he wants. Vim's face burns red as she blushes hard, stammering out a heartfelt thank you for accepting her and for those kind words. After that, the investigation cruises along on the narrator's word. There are no giant monsters anywhere for the rest of the mission. Camilla checks the numbers and smirks. This labyrinth dive's profit is already locked in, solidly in the black. She adds that they uncovered multiple gold veins too, sealing the mission as a massive financial win. But she notes that the progress runs so smooth, it starts to raise red flags among them. She blurts out that things feel way too perfect and that this sweet deal might be dragging them deeper into the labyrinth like a trap. Even with the doubt swirling, she insists they've already pulled off major results and she nails down the dive for exactly 1 week from now. She snaps that there's no turning back now, even as that nagging worry about the slope crawls at the back of her mind. She swears you can't turn back just because it feels wrong, and she keeps hammering the point everyone's knacked Lebo. She warns, if you head back now, you'll just end up drawing dark maps of the whole area. Another member chimes in, swallowing hard as they admit the brutal truth. This is what the dark side of Felbrun really means. Camilla leans in and says dark maps aren't made by magic at all. Adventurers map the truth in real time, sending the info right up until the instant they drop dead. She points out that with the cost of life so brutal, these maps don't get passed around cheaply. They're sold for outrageous prices. She warns them that if they bail out before the case is finished, the thirst for those dark maps will spike overnight. She declares, loud and clear, that you can't just abandon a massive investigation halfway through, no exceptions. Ever. She straight up declares they take pride in dodging moments like that, then doubles down, making it crystal clear the guild won't settle for anything less than excellence. To deal with it, she blasts out a plan. She's forming an advanced team, and they're pushing forward no matter what. She lays it out straight with the risks on the table. This move is the smartest way to cut the danger down as much as possible. She fires them up, insisting they're only a little farther from finally reaching the Great Hall. Guild members huddle in whispers, desperate to know who's about to be picked for this deadly mission. They all agree this kind of mission should only fall to the elite of Naklibel. A huge screen blares an announcement. The next 6 people are officially in the advanced team. First, the crew gets unveiled. Monica the mage, Abel the tank, and Hans the swordsman take their spots. The final 3 are revealed: Vim the granter, Hyde Mary the sage, and Bettina the mage.